Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Well, 12 hours after we signed off earlier this morning, and I'm still enraged about those debate moderators on ABC last night. They should never host another presidential debate again. If the Dems want to have their primary debates over there, that's up to them. But if the GOP agrees to participate in any kind of a debate, primary or general election on ABC News, they deserve what they get, and we will have zero sympathy for them. We've learned more in the days and weeks. We will learn more in the days and weeks ahead of what effect, if any, last night's presidential debate had on this race. There are early indications that voters believe she won, but that it changed no votes. It barely moved the needle, if at all, on who they will actually support in November. Trafalgar joined another polling company to see actually how they felt beforehand and how they felt afterward, and there was absolutely zero change. We'll see more in the polling that comes in the next days and weeks. Meantime, the media is basically climactic today about how she did, and ABC, and the praise for these two in the tank moderators is as over the top as the actual, quote, moderation was. Joining me now to get into all of it, Camille Foster, partner at Freethink, Michael Moynihan, contributor to The Free Press, and Matt Welsh, editor-at-large for Reason. They are the hosts of The Fifth Column podcast. Find all their content and support them at wethefifth.com. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. I want to tell you about the Daily Wire's documentary that's exposing the left's precious DEI industry. It's called Am I Racist? And it's hitting theaters nationwide on September 13th. From the same team that brought you What is a Woman? This film proves that the only way to take DEI seriously is to laugh it into oblivion. Right on. Matt Walsh goes deep undercover. Well, you'll see how deep in the twisted world of diversity training, and the results are as hilarious as they are shocking. Here's the deal. Let's pack these theaters for these guys. This is not just entertainment. It's a counterpunch to Hollywood's woke propaganda. Every ticket sold is a blow to the left's narrative. The more tickets sold, the more theaters will show it. That's how it works. Go to amiracist.com and get your tickets now. Bring your friends, your family, even bring a liberal. They might actually learn something about this nonsense. Let's show conservatives can dominate the box office and make opening weekend a big success. Don't sit this one out. Head to amiracist.com and get your tickets now. Guys, welcome back to the show. I wouldn't say I've calmed down. I'm still really angry. I feel like it's a before and after moment for the profession. For me, this debate is not even about Trump and Harris. It's not about the presidential election. It's about what happened last night with what used to be a respected news organization just completely jumping into the tank for one candidate. I mean, not even show me a Fox News debate. Show me one Fox News debate where the moderators have ever done that for the Republican candidate of choice, right? Where they've decided we want Mitt Romney to win, and they sank everybody else. That you can't find that. This was a decision by ABC to get Trump, and while he didn't help himself, taking all of her bait and so on and so forth, ABC News emerged the most victorious in having done what they wanted to do, and with the biggest loss in reputation. That's my view on it. How do you guys see it?
I think that this gave a lot of credence to my political tribe, which is that of the triple haters, the ones who don't like the presidential candidates from either party and also don't like the media. I mean, seriously, there's lots more that you cannot like about Kamala Harris after this, about Donald Trump, who performed horribly, I thought, and definitely ABC. The biggest problem with the ABC moderation, even thinking about it 12 hours later, is not even the asymmetrical fact checks. Sir, this is what you said is not true. Not even that, although that's what we noticed in the room at the time and couldn't believe because it was all going in one direction. The biggest problem is that Kamala Harris hasn't given any interviews, right? She's given one in 50 some odd days to CNN. she hasn't had her views challenged. So this is when you, as a moderator, follow up when she doesn't answer a question. Repeatedly, they asked Donald Trump to, sir, could you please answer the question? They almost didn't do that even once with Kamala Harris. And this is someone who's a new candidate and who has changed her positions really violently on at least a half a dozen big issues. And the way that she answers that is like, well, I've already answered that. Of course, I've answered how I've changed my positions. And then she doesn't actually answer. They did not follow up. That is the biggest bit of malpractice.
Not once. Not once. Let me just show you a little of the fact checking that was done of Donald Trump in short form. Watch.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But here you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. There's clarification, and you know this. You and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican. No judge looked at it and said there was no widespread fraud. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
And now I am going to play a quick shot of ABC News fact-checking Kamala.
Give it a second.
That didn't happen.
No, it's coming. It's coming. Just hold on.
Wait.
It's because she only told the truth.
Yeah.
That's right. That's it, Camille.
And say that David Muir is a real credit to the profession and a brilliant moderator.
Yeah, well, I'm voting for David Muir for president.
I'm voting for David Muir.
He'd thrown his hat into the ring until last night.
Yes, ABC won last night.
I tweeted out, why did they even need Kamala Harris there? Why did ABC even invite her?
She wasn't. Yes. We recorded late last night, about midnight, after a couple hundred glasses of wine, and I had
I needed that. I wish I'd been with you.
Well, it made it much more bearable.
Yeah, every time you're in opportunity economy, you have to take a drink.
Opportunity economy. I had to smoke fentanyl every time I heard it. The thing is, and Megyn, you came up because I suggested you for this. I want to do this in the future in a very specific way, and I was kind of joking, but then quite serious about it. Is that I think that these should be just straight adversarial. You're interviewing somebody for the job of the presidency of the United States, the most powerful job in the world. These should be adversarial interviews. There should be two people, as ABC had it. One person should only ask questions of President Trump, and one person should only ask questions of Vice President Harris, and they should be their adversaries on both sides, challenging them on these issues. Because as I said last night, and this is a great question for me would be bring up the tweet about the Minnesota Bail Fund. We've had no one's had an opportunity to ask her this because, of course, she hasn't given an interview. And if she does, it's certainly not going to be to somebody who's going to ask her about that. Get an adversarial person, and they're on both sides, and have them fire questions at them and actually challenge them. It solves the whole thing, and it actually makes for entertaining television.
I said the same thing last night. I said that if they have another debate, it should not be with any of these news operations. It should be, I get to choose a moderator, and you get to choose a moderator. There's going to be two from the outside. You know, we can each choose one, but this farce of we're going to entrust the future of the country to organizations like ABC News must end. It must end, and shame on any Republican who ever agrees to this shit again. Donald Trump cannot agree to another debate with one of these organizations again, or he gets what he deserves. This is the organization in which it's run by Kamala Harris's best friend, ABC News is these days. They hired Donna Brazile, debate cheater in chief. And I'm not suggesting she gave the questions to Kamala Harris, but you wouldn't be surprised to learn she had. You certainly, after watching that, wouldn't be like, I'm shocked that ABC worked to undermine Donald Trump in such a way. And they put themselves in that position.
I said, I'd be surprised because she didn't answer any of them. If she had them before, maybe she would have answered the questions that were asked of her, including the very first question. Literally the first question. No one comes back.
She's from middle class.
Yeah, of course. She's from the middle class.
Small businesses.
Yes.
Here it is. Wait, let's watch that. It's top 12.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. His plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations.
Okay, keep going. Total dodge. Because we're not. That's obviously why we are not better off than we were 4 years ago. And yet I didn't hear him press her on that.
Didn't hear the moderator's press her on that. I mean, the question's pretty simple. Are we better off? Are we not? She didn't even address the question, not even a little bit. And let's never leave Donald Trump off the hook on this. She said at the end of that thing, his only plan is to cut taxes and do what he's normally doing. Basically, his only plan in this whole debate was to cut taxes and to enact a tariff when it comes to the economy. And he had other stuff about immigration, whatever. But he didn't rise to the level. You can take that opportunity as the opponent in a debate. And you should never walk away from a debate and blame it on the refs, even if the refs are loaded against you. Conservatives and Republicans have for a long time used that to their advantage. Just look at Newt Gingrich, look at other people who in moments of high stress turned it back on and pointed out the unfairness or the loadedness of the moderator. He could have done that. He didn't do any of it. He took the bait over and over again from Kamala Harris and didn't take those opportunities when she was obviously flailing around as she did in her very first answer.
Yeah, I think that's right. And especially during the debate, I was surprised. I think when we were watching it, I might have even said this, that he didn't do, I mean, Newt Gingrich did it in such a grand way. I mean, a memorable way. I mean, you don't remember things from debates. His response about that question, the kind of dirty question that was asked of him, was terrific. And I think he was maybe prepared for it. But Donald Trump, at 1,000,000 points during this debate, could have said, I can't believe you guys are doing this. This is the way you're going to work against me? Do that. And also, by the way, he has the opportunity to, the first thing that he says every time she doesn't answer a question is say, by the way, Americans, keep in mind she didn't answer the question, and then answer your own question. So I think it's absolutely right. And look, a very good column for people to read this morning is Jim Garrity over at National Review, because he did a great thing where he took every question, not the answers, every moderator question, and strung them together. It is really jarring to read them all together. You're like, wow, this is actually what was asked. But as Jim pointed out, and as a number of other people, people I've been talking to this morning, Republicans, he did poorly. He just objectively did not do well.
But can I tell you something? Can I say something on that? Look, I agree with you that Trump took all of her bait. He ran after her bait just like my Stradwick runs after his liver snaps. And that he did not do a good job of staying on his message and fact-checking her in all the places where he could have. But I actually went back, I watched it, rewatched it again today, and then I read the transcript of it carefully, as you can see with my little Post-its. And Trump actually did a better job than I thought he did, trying to bat down her attacks on him. He was attempting, because she would bring up a lot of stuff about him that was not true, or that was potentially damaging. And so I think he did feel the need to say, that's a lie. Here's why that's a lie. Don't be worried about, for example, my tariffs. Here's why. And then he would pivot back. But she was given free rein. She was doing what one should do during a debate, which is just deliver your message, not answer the question asked, make it into an attack on your opponent. And then he felt the need to respond to her attacks and then would try to say something offensive or affirmative. But I think we all walked away with the impression that he wasn't doing a good job because it was just constant. Every single Q&A went this way. He was never really given the opportunity to have a softball of his own, right, where he just had a great issue raised for him that he got to answer cleanly. And he had no help from the moderators when she would lie. And to the contrary, they bring up all of his controversies and then give it to her to double down on him. So he was just placed in this washing machine where they just kept tumbling him around and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling. But if you read the transcript, you'll see he did try on many issues to first respond to the lies about him and then go back to the actual issue at hand or raise his favorite issues. I agree, when the debate was over, you just didn't feel like that had happened.
He's just been doing this for so long at this point. And I mean, what you're describing, Megyn, these are tactical failings on Donald Trump's part. He was not disciplined. They apparently have been working with him behind the scenes for weeks and weeks now to try to get him ready. And you did not see that preparation yesterday. You barely heard the message. For the most part, it's they're bad. they're the worst. They're terrible. There's the hyperbole and the overstatement constantly throughout. He sounded like a car salesman, and I say that with affection. My father was a car salesman. He sold my mother a bum Toyota. She had to keep coming back to the dealership.
That's old true.
And for him to get flagged for lying when he's doing this kind of hyperbole, and everyone understands this is hyperbole, I just use the word everyone, as he does. He doesn't actually mean everyone, but he means a lot of people. Fine, we move along. But he had so many opportunities to turn the page. And I think his worst moments weren't on the redirects. They weren't on the fact checks. It was when they talked to him about January 6th. It was when they talked to him about losing the election. And they should have been prepared for those questions better. And if you're going to play the game Kamala plays, you could say, that's old news. We've been down this road before. What we need to talk about is my record when I was president and her boss's record now. And they are a disaster. They are ruining this country, and that is where we need to pay attention. And if they follow up, you come back at it hard again and say, I have addressed this so many times. Those were the bad old days. If you want to talk about 2020, let's talk about the disaster of the summer of 2020. Let's talk about Walz and how he is perhaps one of the worst examples of Democratic leadership, quote unquote leadership, in 2020. I mean, he didn't do any of that yesterday. What he did do was take a shot at his own vice president. That is a self-own. I'm not surprised by the ways he failed yesterday. I am surprised by the extent to which he failed.
But you know, on all those questions, Camille, you had David Muir following up. So no regrets. So you don't. So okay, every time there are a couple instances where he fought with Trump. He actually fought with him over and over. And yet, let me give you one of these. We didn't cut this, but I'm just reading from the transcript. David Muir, okay, turning now to immigration and border security, an important issue, blah, blah, blah. Okay, root causes. You were the root causes person, Kamala Harris. We know illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. In June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions, and then the numbers dropped. Why did the administration wait 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently? That's a good question, right? He asked that of Kamala Harris. She goes on. Way, but very good question. She goes on. First, she starts with her John Wayne imitation. My audience knows what I mean. I get down to that border and I got those criminals. I didn't let them. That's my John Wayne impression. That's me imitating Kamala, imitating John Wayne. She wants us to believe she was like this tough on border crime person because she prosecuted gun trafficking cases in California. That doesn't make her tough. We're talking about criminal border crossings and how you're going to stop them, not prosecuting crime in California once they come and commit a bunch of murders. Anyway, that's how she started. Then she pivots not to anything that's responsive, but to the border security bill that the Republicans killed. And then she goes here. I'm going to tell you something. He's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that's being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual. And I'm going to, do you remember where she went here?
Let's see, Project 2025.
This is where she went to the rallies in response to why didn't you do anything earlier? Where have you been on illegal immigration? People forget that was it was a good question by ABC to her. And this is the answer on which she pivoted to his rallies. What the F does that have to do with their failures on immigration? 10.4 million under Biden, 2.3 million under Trump. That's it. Those are the numbers somebody needed to say last night. And she says, I'll tell you, I'm gonna do something really unusual. I'm gonna invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You'll see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He talks about windmills causing cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. This is such an obvious look over here, something shiny. Don't look at the 10.4 million. And you as a viewer are saying, don't do it, Trump. Don't do it. Say 10.4.
We were literally having that conversation.
We weren't saying don't do it. We're like, he's going to do it.
No one said don't do it. Like, he's absolutely going to do it.
It was an amazing moment.
He totally did it.
Project. Wait, I need a moment.
But here's the point I'm raising. Here's the point I'm raising. This is the point at which an honest moderator would have said, the question was, why now? Why didn't you solve it earlier? Right? And maybe she would have said,
You're the executive branch. You know, it's not just the border bill line is a good one and it can be contested either way, but it's, you know, Donald Trump did intervene in that legislative process. Okay, that's a thing to talk about. But the executive branch has a lot of power to enforce immigration law in this country in ways that
you get kicked.
Well, that's the right question. That's the right question exactly right there. You, on his first day in office, President Biden and you, by executive order, undid all of the border security measures that Trump put in place. Aren't you the ones to blame for the 10.4? That's the proper question.
It's a proper question. And I mean, obviously, Donald Trump, if the moderators are not going to do this, and you know at this point they're not going to, you know they're training their fire on you, it's incumbent upon you as a skilled politician, and he might be a good politician, he's a terrible debater, to actually make that point yourself. You know, it's incredible thing is that I was, this morning I was getting coffee, and I live in an area where there are actual Marxists, like everyone's an actual Marxist, and I'm in line, surrounded, swaddled by dopes, talking about the debate last night. The person behind me is saying, oh, it was such a brilliant thing that she did by bringing up. And it's like, no, it's a very obvious thing, and he should have been prepared for it. It's not that she's brilliant. It's just that he can't control himself. And, you know, look, it's a boring and obvious point, but so many times during that debate, you have two instincts, and mine matches yours in one way, Megyn, is that I can't believe I'm watching these moderators do this sort of thing. And then the other one is, good Lord, he really cannot control himself on anything. He's debating whether or not the Central Park Five were guilty.
Such a bad
You know who thought they were guilty? No, nobody knows. Nobody cares. Redirect it and say, why did you tweet about the bail fund? But why are you doing price control?
He did raise that. He did raise that. He's the only one who raised the bail fund. They did not raise that against her at all. They let her meander time and time again and lie time and time again. And one time Trump did fact check her on the spot, but it was really, you know, kind of lost. I can tell you're going to make a point. Go ahead.
No, I think it's right, because the thing, though, what he did one time is ask, just because the mics are off, ask a question of her. He did once, and guess what? She didn't answer.
Nope.
It was on the abortion.
7 months? 8 months? 9 months? Nothing.
She didn't want to answer.
And she looked terrible in that. Do the same thing when it's the bail fund stuff.
Right.
Answer the question. Why did you change your mind on that? Do you support that sort of thing?
I think that's what
where's the moderator? Where's the moderator to make her answer that? Kamala Harris, would you support abortion in that you say you'll support Roe? Does that mean you would support abortion in the 7th, 8th, and 9th month? But no follow. None of those little like follow-ups you didn't actually answer, which they did to Trump all night. Not one to her. Go ahead, Camille.
Well, I was just going to say, that's what makes his performance last night so frustrating if you are someone who actually likes Donald Trump. It must be anyways. He had that moment. He had that moment, and he could have done it again. He could have simply redirected it, asked her another question, put the question directly to her. He didn't do it. There were breaks and stops in the action when he could have collected himself, perhaps calmed down a little bit, even had that moment where he turns to the moderators and say, look, I see what you guys are doing. I get it. I understand. You're not big fans of mine. There are plenty of people out there who aren't big fans of mine.
Right there's a good line, yes.
Boom. Yep. It's easy. And these are small things that he could have worked on. In fact, we've seen him do this kind of stuff in other contexts, which is what made, again, I'm not surprised by the ways in which he failed, in the areas, but the degree to which he did it is another thing entirely.
He should have had his big media moment. Here's the problem, though. He couldn't have the Newt Gingrich moment because that was one question to Newt, and it opened the CNN debate by John King. One, that's easy. It's not easy to be as great as Newt was on that answer. No, that was spectacular. But I'm just saying, even Trump could have understood, look what happened with me at that debate in 2015 when we asked him that very tough, that wasn't actually the opening question. It was something from Brett about whether he'd support the eventual nominee. But anyway, my point is, he can do it when it's just one question or two questions. This was an ambush. It was an all-in pile-on with one guy in the foxhole and all these shooters all around him. And Trump was trying. He was trying to take care of this one and take care of this one and take care of that one. But it was ubiquitous around him. There's only so much he felt he could do. And I felt for him. I mean, I recognized it too. All semblance of fairness had gone out the window. I mentioned this last night. This was my least favorite tactic All right, this was perhaps the most unfair thing ABC did. We pulled a couple of examples. We could have gone on, but here's just a couple of, this is the format. You are fucking awful, Donald Trump. Why are you so awful? And then Vice President Harris, would you like to weigh in on how awful he is? Watch it. Watch.
Yeah.
Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here? Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent? Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
By the way, asking someone, as a debate moderator, do you believe it's appropriate to whatever you said? Is just like, as a moderator question, I think that the average American actually notices this. And I was talking to somebody about this today, is that Donald Trump lost the debate. I think there's no doubt about this. I think he was terrible. I know other people might disagree with me on that, but I think that one thing that saved him was the moderation. I think that pushed that, more towards a, not like a draw, but it's somewhere kind of in the closer to the middle because of how obvious it is to watch them do things like that.
100%.
I mean, imagine that you're like, the follow-up here is like, how much do you agree that he should feel bad about this? Whereas there's an actual question that she was talking about near the top, right? About tariffs. She's calling tariffs taxes. Okay. He points out correctly that many of his tariffs, especially about China, the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration had adopted. So
they kept.
The natural moderator question is, so Kamala Harris, those tariffs, are they not taxes? Which ones are taxes? Are the ones that you don't like, the one that Trump wants, or the ones that you do like? And just tease that out in a way that's a little bit more elegant. That's an actual important follow-up question about policy and about philosophy that is so much more important than like Black Indian nomenclature.
I know.
And this is the second time. Dana Bash asked that shit. Dana Bass asked 30 questions. These guys asked about like 13 or 14, depending on how you do it, with some follow-ups. They thought that was one of the most important ones. And also, here's one that maybe you didn't even highlight, Megyn, but we've seen this in how many debates over the last 25 years? This question. Climate change is a really big issue. And our, the young people especially really care about it. What are you going to do about it? That is no longer the question. The question is, maybe say something like, okay, so you wanted to ban fracking in 2019. Fracking has been the single biggest driver of reducing carbon footprint, which is good for greenhouse gases. How do you square that circle, right? Like, talk about a policy or a trade-off, not just the young people really care about climate change. What do you say?
That's all. That was the question. Where do you stand on climate change? The fracking thing was one of the biggest fall downs of the night. For all his stupid fact-checking, David Muir's stupid fact-checking. I listened to all those pieces of tape and I did not hear sarcasm. Shut up. Who died and made you king of what sarcasm is and what isn't? That is opinion. It's not a fact check. For all
he seems like someone who understands sarcasm.
And fact-checking, he didn't fact-check her on the fracking. He did it after Dana Bash fell down on the job in that CNN interview and let her get away with, I've made my position perfectly clear back in 2020 on the debate stage, perfectly clear that I do not support a ban on fracking. When, of course, the Joe Biden, that was the Joe Biden, she was the vice presidential debate, where she said Joe Biden won't ban fracking. Joe Biden won't. She had said she would have if she had been elected as president 6 months earlier. So now, if you're David Muir, you know this is coming. You've written it into your questions. Lindsay Davis has a question about fracking and the flip-flop. And she says she hasn't flip-flopped. And again, they let her get away with it. No fact check. But for Trump, that wasn't sarcasm. What? And of those other stupid fact checks we just played, it was so unfair and lopsided. I can barely keep the stomach bile where it belongs.
We were gonna send a drone with some Xanax over to your compound.
We have an Uber Eats just full of Xanax and Klonopin. I'm
into it. I've never taken a Xanax. But I would.
I can give you some. It's fine. Yeah, I have a couple in my bag. I want to say one final thing. I really, really want to be clear. I love adversarial debate moderators. Sure. Totally fine if you want to do it in an even-handed way. So we were talking about this last night. I think, why just... You have a list of questions, right? You write these out and they kind of send them around to ABC. Be a little more off the cuff at certain times. So, for instance, it is a perfect time for a moderator who's been paying attention to this race when she says, in the question about Afghanistan, well, Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait, Joe Biden. And then, she says, well, I didn't ban fracking in the past. As a moderator, as somebody who is an interviewer, Megyn, you know this, you see these things, you make those connections. It's the beautiful mind. And you say, wait, hold on. Madam Vice President, when are you in charge and when are you not in charge? What can you take credit for and what can you not take credit for? Because the disaster in Afghanistan was Joe Biden's. You not banning fracking was you. So explain to the American people what you do as a vice president in which decisions you're responsible for. That is a completely reasonable question, but they're just reading off.
Here's the other thing on the fracking, because here's what a responsible journalist does. They go back and they look at all her recent statements and all of his recent statements on these issues that you're going to raise, and you make sure you know where they normally go, and you get ready for a potential fact check if you have to do it. What's she going to say in response to this? We used to do this on Fox News all the time. Go back and look at any debate Brett Baer, Chris Wallace, and I did as the three moderators of these, and this shit never happened to us because we were prepared and we would anticipate what they would say, and we'd have the hammer ready to drop if they walked into our trap. It was fun, and we did it to Republicans, even though we were at Fox News. So you can, right, exactly. You can set them up for difficult questions. You just have to do it to both sides. But on the fracking question, they should have known, based on what she said to Dana Bash, that she was going to both deny that she'd held this position, refer to her 2020 vice presidential debate, and claim that as her own position, even though it was only saying Joe Biden won't ban fracking, and that she would then go on to say exactly what she said to Dana Bash in that CNN interview, which was, I, in fact, cast the deciding vote as president of the Senate in my role as vice president to open up more leases as part of the Inflation Reduction Act for fracking, on fracking. That sounds so good on paper. Yes, because she said it before. They clearly didn't do their homework because they don't give a shit. All they want to do is go with that. That sounds good. We actually looked it up. You know what? It's true. Yeah. She did open those more leases by that vote, only to then, a couple of months later, shut them all down, saying the environmental impact hadn't been fully studied. So they put that in there so they could say they'd done it, only to then cut it all out at the knees. A responsible debate moderator interested in fact-checking might have raised something like that.
If you were going to bring back any question from that Bash interview, I didn't suspect it would be the one about the race stuff. Yeah. I thought it might have been the one about Biden, his fitness for office, which was a moment when she asked the question. She didn't ask it well because she covered it in euphemism to try to help Kamala to the right answer. But it's the right question to ask. And if the moderators aren't going to ask it, Donald Trump should have mentioned it. At what point did you know that your boss was incapable of actually doing the job? Because there's only two possibilities there. You were either lying and you said that he could do it when you knew he couldn't, or you have incredibly poor judgment. Because every single American and everyone in the media, once they saw that debate performance, knew what we've known for a very long time, that Joe Biden simply isn't up to the task at this point. And he certainly won't be up to the task next year or 4 years from now. And
Camille, there wasn't one question about his mental fitness and why she didn't come forward about it. Not one. How
and it's not
did
just
we go
mental
through a whole
fitness.
debate without that?
Go ahead. That is probably the biggest bit of malpractice because it extends the malpractice from Dana Bash because she asked the question really, really badly. As Camille said, gave three multiple choice answers in the question, which is not very helpful as a journalist.
No.
The question is not just like, when did you notice, which is an important one, but it's also, she said that the Robert Hur investigation, which came out in February, said it was clearly politically motivated. Right? Career prosecutor here in the DOJ. She
defaming him.
She was an attorney general, right? So she was like arresting illegal aliens on the border. That's a weird thing to do to one of your career prosecutors.
Undocumented migrants. But continue. Sorry.
But she said that it was also objectively false. That his assessment of Biden's fitness, she said this in February. She went further than anybody else in the administration. She was the Morning Joe of the administration in defending Biden's fitness and defaming a career prosecutor in his reasons for not prosecuting Joe Biden. She has never had to answer this. She's been running for president now for nearly 2 months. She has not had to answer for that, and she didn't after that debate.
This is the thing. And by the way, this is the thing to always emphasize. I mean, she hasn't had to answer that. I have a friend who watches this show, and I know I'm going to get an email from him after because, I'm not a Trump fan. He's more of not a Trump fan. But the reason that the focus for me, and I think for us, is on Kamala Harris, I can just, blithely say that I thought Donald Trump was a disaster. He was bullshitting a lot. He did poorly. But it's because of that thing. It's because not that she hasn't answered, she hasn't had to answer. We have two opportunities, Dana Bash and this. So guess why I'm going to be pissed off? Because I have this whole passel of questions that I want answered because I'm a fucking voter. Sorry, I can swear on this, right?
Well, yeah, you can.
Right? It's 12:30. Sorry, kids who are listening to Megyn Kelly.
Welcome to my potty mouth world.
But these are things like, again, not to be boring about this, but you are auditioning for the most important job in the world, and this is what you're doing. You're not answering questions. You're not being asked good questions. As an interviewer, as Megyn is saying, I used to call this watching fight tape. You know what people are going to say. You anticipate what they're going to say. You're ready to go this way and that way. And the only explanation I have for them not doing that is that they don't want to. And I think the reason for that, and I'm actually going to say something that you might disagree with, I don't think this comes from the top. I don't think it has to come from the top. I think these are people, they are, the thing was when Donald Trump was president, we saw this phrase always, and then it disappeared without evidence. Donald Trump claimed, without evidence, and then all of a sudden politicians were always using evidence. After Donald Trump got, everybody had evidence. But that instinct comes back. When Donald Trump is there, you're like, sir, I really need to tell you right here. It's like that voice, by the way, is driving me crazy. It's like, I'm going to fact check you here. It's like that is the Donald Trump instinct because you've had 9 years of this where you're being pushed by everyone. Fact check him in real time. All he does is lie. Okay, he lies a lot. I totally agree. But politicians lie a lot. You have to do it to everybody else too, because there were whoppers in there. And the one that pissed me off the most, sorry to go on a rant here, is the bloodbath one, which is so obvious. And if you don't know that,
let me play some of it. Here's a montage of some of her unchecked lies. Not a single fact check by ABC. Watch, SOT 6.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. When it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. The President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. If Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
She's literally on record supporting a mandatory buyback program.
She's left from that. Tell the bloodbath story, because not everybody knows.
Yeah, no, it was about tariffs and electric vehicles in Mexico, and it would be an economic bloodbath if this stuff came through. And by the way, Trump is not restrained in this debate at all, but was restrained in those moments. I think he should have been more vocal. Obviously, the mics were off, but you could hear her when the mics were off, objecting and baiting him. But that one, I have to say, Megyn, because we were 97 drinks in and yelling at the TV, which is what I do when I watch Alf. This is no different than normal, but I'm doing this and I missed the Brian Sicknick reference, who was the officer who died, and the autopsy showed that he died of natural causes, and it wasn't because he was beaten over the head with a fire extinguisher and all these things. And Trump tried to go back to that with the Ashley Babbitt stuff, but I think he made a hash of it, as he did a lot of this stuff. But that is really egregious. She knows that stuff's not true. And what is the presumption that we have? That they're going into this knowing that they don't have to really, be precise about this stuff, because they're not going to be fact-checked. They know it.
That's right.
Think about
the both sides lie has been debunked by Snopes. Trump and I'll give you the floor in 1 second, Matt, but Trump's response was, Laura Ingraham has said it's not true. Oh my God. What are you doing?
Victor Orban said it wasn't true.
Snopes, which hates Republicans, has said it's not true. Go there, sir. Go ahead, Matt.
The one that wasn't even in your montage, maybe because it's so built into the fabric of Democratic and media life right now, is just the incessant
2025?
Project 2025.
Yeah.
Right? This is the Trump blueprint. Everything in that is his government program. He has distanced himself. He has said, and he said at the debate
last night,
that's not my program. It's a Heritage Foundation document from 2022 that was prepared in mind with maybe Ron DeSantis gets the thing as well. And clearly, it got too much press, and he got mad and tried to push it away. But there is a Republican Party platform. Right? That says what they're going to do. Trump has a campaign website with issues. Harris now has lots of issues on her website beginning on Monday, finally, 2 months into the whole thing. But that has led, they've said that nonstop. During the DNC, I don't know how many references there was to Project 2025, probably more than 150, I would say.
Yeah, that big prop book.
The big prop book. Jared Polis, who was otherwise pretty good, brought the prop book out, and that was very disappointing. They can say that without any fear of being fact-checked, that this is the governing document. It is not the governing document of what a Trump administration will do. You could make the argument that, hey, there's some overlap there, there's some personnel, there's some aspirations and whatnot. There's also some things in there that Trump would absolutely hate, like free trade things written by Veronique DeRougy or something. That's not going to happen at all under a Trump administration. But she can say it over and over again, and without fear of ever being fact-checked to the same degree. Trump's hyperbole is going to be fact-checked.
No, look at this. Look at her claim last night on again, she's John Wayne again. She loves the guns. Take a listen.
Then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
The continuous lying. Here she is in 2019.
Assault weapons that are already in circulation. What do you do about those?
We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
Mandatory. Fair moderator would have been ready with that fact. That's not spin. That's not a Trump argument. That's not the RNC. That's her on cam saying it. But she got away with just stop with the continuous lies because she had either lazy moderators or biased ones. My suspicion is both.
Shout out to Craig Melvin there from NBC, who is an actually very good moderator, in my opinion, and a pretty good journalist, Megyn.
He's annoying, and so are you for saying that.
What do you think that she's going to be okay with that? No. She hates everybody.
Craig Melvin is one of the assholes who jumped all over me after my blackface Halloween. I had been so nice to him. He begged me to come on my show. I put him on. I helped him out repeatedly because he didn't really have much of a role other than his shitty no-watch MSNBC show. Begged me. I helped him. And then I make this comment with the knife like a psycho killer. F you, Craig Melvin, and screw you, Matt Welch, for saying that. Go ahead.
Megyn, I got a couple things here, but I want to know if in the next hour I can just name journalists and you can lose your mind about them.
I'm in that kind of mood.
New York Post headlines? Can we get some New York Post headlines?
I'm in that kind of mood today.
I know, it's the best mood to ask these questions. And by the way, the best debate moderator follow-up, because I had never heard, and maybe this is just me and I hadn't done my homework, that she's a gun owner. It's just, what kind of gun do you have?
Yeah,
She's like 8.
that's right.
Does she?
Yeah, apparently.
And what kind of gun is it? I would be interested. I mean, there's 2 follow-ups to that. It's like, no, you didn't say that. Also, Craig Melvin is a fascist or whatever. That's me. That's me. That's not Megyn. That's not Megyn. I'm trying to get into character of what Megyn and Matt. And then the third one is what is a mandatory gun buyback? What is that? It's a mandatory gun buyback.
Yeah, she's going to pass an assault weapons ban, and then she's going to go and collect everybody's guns. That's what she's saying. It's what people live in fear of because we're American and we have a Second Amendment. There's like the egregious fall downs on the job were everywhere. And again, no follow-ups whatsoever. Like, she kept saying, we're going to get to that. I can't wait to talk about all my flip-flops. And she never did because she wasn't made to by the moderators, right? It was just, they were perfectly happy to let her get away with the gun buyback, with the fracking, with the private health insurance. They did ask. She said, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private health insurance and put everybody on a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What's your plan today? All right. That's just the softest way to ask these questions, right? That's no, you're shaking your head. No, that's not the right way. No. And first she says, I absolutely support a private healthcare option, and I will get to that, Lindsay. But first, I need to tell you, I've made very clear my position on fracking and the business about taking everyone's guns away. And so stop with the continuous lying and all. I mean, it's just, and what does Lindsay Davis respond with? Like, anything about that earlier gun comment or the earlier tape of her saying she does want to take away private insurance? Any of that? No. I want to move on to an issue that's important, right? And then she goes on and eventually gets to climate change. Climate change. I got
to start doing that. You know, the girlfriend's like, I saw you texting this woman. It's like, I know that's an important issue. We'll get back to that. But at first, I want to say, and then filibuster for 3 days. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing thing that it's, by the way, it's not even an ideological thing. As somebody who interviews people for a living, I know Megyn can sympathize with this too. When people do that, it is annoying as an interviewer, and it gets my dander up. And I'm usually like, hey, stop, wait. Ask this very specific question. Let's get to that. We can get to the other thing later. And like the people whatabouting everything or changing the subject is the very, very base unit as an interviewer that you're just trained to intercept. And I do know why, but it was very frustrating to see that stuff. And once, by the way, when you get away with it in the first question, that's it. You do it the whole time.
I'm curious. Is some of her like over talk is like not strategic? The ambition, the aspiration, the hope. I imagine and actually have a plan. Like you have said the same thing several different ways in one sentence. I can't imagine that isn't like actually designed to obfuscate the fact that she's not responding to questions. Like it feels that way. And one can imagine that with the moderators, and maybe this is giving them too much credit, that maybe if they realized, if they could see through that smokescreen, they might have followed up in a couple of instances. Like, I'm sorry, what's the answer to the question? But
that's the thing, though. They had no instinct for it, Camille, because they wanted to help her. That's why. That's why they didn't let Donald Trump get away with that at all. When he tried to not answer the question, they had their follow-up. The question was, insert. With her, it didn't happen one time. And she dodged and weaved like O.J. Simpson. There, I made a sports reference. It's like, I don't know any
It's more of a double murderer reference.
As an athlete, he did.
I don't know. Who's an athlete that dodges and weaves? I can't think of. There's got to be some.
You literally went with O.J.
Emmitt Smith was also good. He won some championships, you know.
Unbelievable.
I don't know.
The O.J. of debates.
Before we take a break, what do you guys make of the Taylor Swift endorsement?
Oh, man. You guys have sent your daughters to see Taylor Swift in different states and countries.
You make this sound as if I'm sending her to, like, reformatory school or something. She her cousin wanted her to. I'm sorry, I have to defend my daughter for a second.
I'm just saying it's a big deal. Like,
By the way, Megyn will be on my side on this, and I know why. Because when she was 11 years old, not knowing, she sent me something from Instagram that was a clip from the Megyn Kelly Show. And I was like, wow, red
good
pilled
woman.
at 11. I swear to God, I swear in my life, I can screen cap and send it to you. But yeah, I don't care, and it didn't surprise me. You know, she intervened in the Tennessee thing in the past. She's a liberal. Her father, by the way, isn't. Remember this whole controversy because he's a bit a conservative. He had posted some things on Facebook. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have to disaggregate the number of people because we were talking about our daughters liking, and none of them are going to vote this time around because they can't. And I don't
They're children.
They're children. I saw the pictures from the concert that my daughter went to. Not a lot of voters among them. But so I don't know what kind of effect this has, considering that I think people already knew this. I know you're a bit exercised about this, Megyn. I have no opinion.
I'm irritated at her reasons. That it was Tim Walz and his stance on LGBTQ, which she's either a know-nothing or she's an insane person. Stand by, quick break. More with the guys from the Fifth Column who are here for the whole show. You don't need me to tell you that life is precious, that it could all get taken away in an instant or jeopardized. And that is why I want to tell you about My Patriot Supply and their 4-week emergency food kit. It's got everything your family could need during a crisis. Listen to this. With over 2,000 calories per day, there's enough to go around during times of social unrest, government crackdowns, or God forbid, an attack on the homeland, not to mention some sort of a natural disaster. The food lasts up to 25 years, ready whenever disaster strikes. We have seen mass panic in our lifetimes before, not so long ago. Don't take your family's safety for granted. Right now, you can get $50 off their 4-week emergency food kit. Go to preparewithmegan.com and save $50 on your 4-week emergency food kit. And My Patriot Supply will send it over as fast as humanly possible. Get your 4-week emergency food kit now at preparewithmegan.com. Preparewithmegan.com. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Even Strudwick, sweet Strudwick, my naughty boy, cannot imagine life without them. But some dogs are not so lucky. And that is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter, safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing this now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but we want other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. deltarescue.org.
To tie the game at 7-7.
Are you watching this? Look at this Fifth Column. There it is. Okay, that was O.J. Simpson dodging and weaving people. That's video proof. My reference was spot on.
I'm just saying, Megyn, that we could have gone with Tony Dorsett. We could have gone with Gale Sayers. There's a lot of running backs who did that, who didn't do all the murdering.
The objection wasn't that he didn't dodge and weave. It was that he murdered two people.
You have to separate the athlete from the crime. Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Wasn't Gale Sayers part of the really sad story?
The Brian song. You bet.
Yeah, the Brian Piccolo story. That's the only reason I know that. Only if it crosses over into entertainment or news do I know the sports players, which is why I am limited to these weird references whenever.
Your audience just heard you say sports players, and they know exactly what to expect.
The point is, I was right. Okay, that's a point. It was fine. The reference was fine. I've got to stay on Taylor Swift for 1 minute. Because Doug Brunt, my husband, he doesn't react to that much in the news. And so when it gets his attention, I know that something's gone either very right or very wrong. And he did not like this clip from Tim Walz reacting to the Taylor Swift news. Watch.
Taylor Swift signed childless cat lady. I have to get your response to that, Mr. Governor.
All those things, I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
Courage.
Okay, so for the listening audience, when he first reacted, his mouth was like this.
Yeah.
And my husband said he looks like Elmer Fudd. That's what he looks like, Elmer Fudd. Like there's something off about this guy. And just one more for you. Different but similar reaction from Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC.
The Harris for President campaign now has the two most perfectly timed and most important endorsements of this campaign. Joe Biden's 27-minute timed endorsement after he said, I'm not the candidate. Perfect timing. It just put a rocket on her to the nomination. And it's so important, I think, to the people who are going to be consuming that Taylor Swift endorsement, including those fathers of 8-year-old girls. And the timing on it is absolutely exquisite. The wording of it is flawless and perfect, right down to the cat lady stuff.
There you go. The fathers. That's you guys. The fathers of the young girls are going to be pushed. I know. I mean, I don't really get it, but perfect.
On Instagram by now?
First of all, I don't. Two very important comments that everyone should pay attention to. I really cannot stand on cable news when people pretend that something's funny because someone important is on. He said, I got my cat owner too. And everyone's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Tim Waltz,
that is so true.
Pryor of Minnesota. That's the first very important thing. It makes me sick. The second thing is I don't like the Joe Biden. That was the rocket. First, I was at the DNC. I don't remember that rocket taking off. And then the fathers of 8-year-old girls. My daughter is 13, and as you could imagine, she's perfect and hilarious and everything. That said, I don't look to the people that she listens to on her Spotify account and say, who are they going to vote for? That's what I really want to know. Because, you know, sometimes it's Freddie Mercury and he doesn't have a choice right now.
I have an 11-year-old son. That's my youngest. And all the people he listens to sing about poop and farts. That's really his.
Who are these artists? Is that?
There's a lot of songs on there. You're into, that's fine. But there's a lot of songs. These are not our political, opinion makers. Go ahead, Matt.
DJ Scatto.
Yeah, I might want to have a talk with him, by the way, but that's just, I'm not going to.
There have been many.
My daughter is a 16-year-old Swiftie. My other daughter is becoming a Swiftie. She's 9. And she's not going to be moved even a millimeter by this. She's moved by, as all 16-year-old girls are, by hilarious TikTok videos having to do with like skibbity rizzlers and things like that. And Melania Trump. Melania Trump is an absolute hero to 16-year-old girls. I think she's fantastic.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, to his 16-year-old.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But I could see it.
Sure. She's my hero.
I mean, she's a hero to me, too.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
People hate Donald Trump so much that they've forgotten that she's our hottest first lady by a lot. By a lot. It's not even close. In like Abigail Adams, nothing. Please.
I'm on the record.
Abigail Adams. I don't believe you because Vogue put Jill Biden on the cover as our fashion icon. We're supposed to be looking up to. Jill Biden. Remember Jill Biden? Remember Joe Biden? Yeah, he's still president. Just FYI, I don't know if you're aware. Here is another attempted. Well, it's Trump who's doing the fact check, but I can't believe David Muir had the nerve to say this about the crime stats. Watch this. SOT 9.
Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
That is totally correct, what Trump said in response. He was having to fact check the moderator, gents. Fact check the moderator. Not only is he right, they did remove the major cities, several of them, from that crime study that was referenced. But on top of that, the decrease in violent crimes is looking at all post George Floyd. If you want to compare present year to 2019, pre-George Floyd, there is not. We are not down. We are up considerably. And Heather McDonald has been pointing this out and pointing out, if you want to go back even further and look at the Ferguson effect after 2014 and compare where we were prior to Ferguson versus now, again, we've skyrocketed, none of which would be offered by David Muir. But what do you make of the fact that Trump had to fact check not only Kamala, but the moderators?
It didn't help that, as Trump always does, he then extends and his own kind of apocalyptic hyperbole, right? So he's in the same way that like Dana Bash gives Kamala Harris 4 different things ways to answer a question to make it soft on her. He gives moderators, especially ones who are keyed up through what I think is peer pressure, really from their colleagues industrially, to be sort of tough on Trump so he doesn't abuse his platform. When he says, our country is being destroyed, Israel is going to cease to exist in 2 years,
yeah.
Which he said that Kamala is a communist, his dad's a communist, Joe Biden hates her. A lot of these are like jokes.
Doesn't know he's alive.
Doesn't know that was funny. So like he is giving, in addition to that fact check there, and I take your word for it, Megyn, of his depiction of it, but he's also saying these other things, and so it I think dulls the impact. Right? Donald Trump is never going to come across as the person who's going to be the biggest truth teller on any stage. And especially towards the end when he knew, I think, that he was kind of scrambling for keeping his head above water in this debate, he sped up and he kept getting more and more hyperbolic in his statements in a way that it just becomes hard to take him seriously. And I think even in those things that he was saying about Kamala Harris, she was skillful in not taking the bait herself. She could have said, no, my dad's not a communist. If she's like left
She left that there. She left a bunch of stuff there, which was very
She's
wise.
Not capable.
And again,
it was smart, but she's not capable of doing it. She was like, that is not part of my rote memorization. What card is that on? I do not have it.
There were 2 grades that we were talking about last night. The one on substance and on style, and I think she did well on style. She backed up and she didn't fall on her face like we thought she was going to do. But if you look at the David Muir question, there's actually the first 4 or 5 words are the key to it. I mean, people kind of forget this. He said, Mr. President, as you know, which is a blatant accusation of lying. I mean, the thing is that there's a number of ways, and again, like Matt, I haven't looked at this stuff and looked at it recently. I'm trusting your take on it, Megyn. But there's a number of ways of looking at these statistics, right? Going back to 1993 in New York when there were over 2,000 murders. Like, it's down. It's like, yes, but down. Where's your starting point? So you can be generous in some sense and say, you're interpreting this a different way. But if you look at it this way, Mr. President, but you're just going out of the block and saying, as you know, Mr. President, that is incorrect. I don't think you should do that as a moderator. I'm sorry. But
let me give you some stats. Let me give you some stats because we had Heather McDonald on the show who you can trust implicitly. I mean, Heather does her homework on all things revolving around crime. This is like one of her main beats. And here are some of the stats that we pulled in connection with that interview. According to the Council on Criminal Justice, comparing 2023 to 2019, the homicide rate 18% higher in 2023 versus 19. Gun assault rate 32% higher. Carjacking 93% higher. Car theft 105% higher. Chicago, total crime up 55% in 2023. Robbery up 38%. Car theft up 22%. Memphis, homicides up 87%. And as for those, the one article that the left, Rachel Maddow and David Muir are basing their claims on, that crime has been falling, that it's at a 50-year low and so on and so forth. The guy admits that the major cities were not included in this report. Some major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles did not report any data. So Trump was right. You don't have to believe Trump. You can believe me. You can believe Heather McDonald. You can believe the guy who authored the study on which David Muir is basing that claim. You can believe the Council on Criminal Justice. The point is, it's not the candidate's job to clean up the moderator's inaccurate questions. This is such bullshit. Again, he was in the foxhole. Everyone was surrounding him, firing down at the guy. And Trump was trying to stop the gunfire at every turn. The guy's human. And there's only so much he can do. And that's why I watched this thing and I felt empathy for him. I felt like this is unfair. This is not a fair test of what a president can do and what we should be putting our presidential candidates through in order to get to the office. It's almost cruel. It's trying to humiliate him. That's how I felt watching it.
I keep coming back to the fact that he talked about his expectations of unfairness in the debate. He did not expect them to be fair. He said so in advance. He said so before the CNN debate as well, and that they were fair. And just, if you know that that is the case, there's two things they probably should have done, the campaign. Insist that there be another debate on Fox News or something like that, so that you at least have this other opportunity and it's already there. Force Kamala to do it. And the second thing is, again, you know what the defects of your candidate are. You know that he has difficulty just being disciplined and staying on message. That you should laser focus on that. Every question should come, and for every Kamala response, you should go back to the fact that you're in office right now. Why haven't you done it already?
Everyone.
You should have said it like twice. You should have said it every single time and then apologize.
He did get there.
I know you're at home and you're watching, and I've said this 8 times already, but I'll say it again, because she is the sitting vice president. They aren't doing the things she promises you that she's going to do that are going to make your life better. What is she waiting for? You can't trust her. That would have worked. But he didn't.
No, he should have said. He never said that you can't trust her. She changes her positions all the time. She makes all these promises, but she doesn't do them while she's in office. His best answer was his closing statement, where he did make these points over and over. Here's a highlight.
Just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it?
Primacy and recency. That's what viewers remember. And here was the CBS focus group of, I believe it was Pennsylvania undecideds, reacting after the debate. And listen to what came up.
She just basically repeated everything that Biden has said in the past.
What were your thoughts? She made, Donald Trump made a strong closing statement by saying, why didn't they do all the things that she's proposing during the 3.5 years that they've been in office? And Biden did this entire moderate stance back in 2020, and she's trying to do it again in 2024, but she didn't talk about her policy changes between 2020 and 2024. Her whole centrist moderate stance is just a facade.
What do you make of that, you guys?
It reminds me a little bit of the post-DNC glow when everybody in the building was just talking about all the joy. Don't you feel joy? You're being joyed on all over your face. And there was tangible joy, or at least a euphoric sense of relief in the audience, because they didn't have to pretend that Joe Biden was fit to be president, or at least like a good candidate. They had some nice speeches from the Obamas and Oprah Winfrey and stuff. So people were in a good mood. They had a really great DJ, legitimately, playing like Sweet Home Alabama. So there was joy in the building, but they tried to incept the joy as if all of America was feeling it. And no, all of America isn't the people who can get through 75 security checkpoints and into the United Center, for a few days. Americans are people who haven't heard from this vice president, right? We know who Trump is. Americans know who Trump is. There's not going to be a lot of new information unless he somehow changes in a certain way. And there's an argument that maybe he's changed a little bit. But they don't really know Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate and aspirant. And as the guy said in the Pennsylvania focus room, we haven't got good explanations at all about how she's changed her mind and how this then impacts what she's going to be like. So that, yes, is the job of a moderator, but it also gives us a sense that maybe there's a cap on, even right now, on a debate that it seems pretty clear that she won. I think most people who watch it will say she won. But the question is, how much of an impact is that going to have on people when you have, on one hand, a lot of those who don't have that natural sense of democratic joy are going to look at the way that this was moderated and presented and feel like this is just continuing the sneering that I'm reacting against. This is the thing that attracts me to begin with, even if we don't like him and think that he colors too much outside the lines or don't like this policy or that. Part of the Trump coalition and the modern day Republican coalition is a revulsion at kind of elite discourse of journalism, of whatever the elites think that they're trying to do. You're going to put more people in that position. So the DNC bump, there really wasn't one. And within a week or two, it kind of dissipated. I think that she will get a measurable bump, but I think that there's a ceiling on that precisely because of that response. And also just because it has been a 50-50 race all along. It's not going to become 80-20.
Okay, so this is what's interesting. So she won, but what did she win? Did she actually persuade anybody? Or are there millions of people sitting at home like that guy saying, I did not hear her explain why she flipped on fracking, and I know she flipped on fracking. I did not hear her explain the private health insurance or the guns. She just denied it, but I've seen the sound bites. And here was another person, this is a CNN focus group, who got a similar message, who had a similar takeaway, like, okay, for all the dazzling, like rhetorical, oh, you didn't do this and you're terrible and everyone hates you. This was his takeaway. I think it's a him. Watch.
I think it's important to remember that we are voting for the leader of our country not who we like the most or who we want in our wedding party, but who is actually going to make our country better. And we're in an incredibly unique situation where we've had both of the candidates in office before, and we've gotten to see what they would do. And when facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
Were you leaning towards the former president coming into the night?
Probably.
And did you vote for him in 2016 or 2020?
I did.
Interesting.
This is the thing that frustrates me. As you know, I heard some people talking about this last night. Republicans, I think Ben Shapiro was talking about it. I think he's a pretty good weather vane for Republicans in some senses, is that you hear the anger from people. And I know, Megyn, you said you had some sympathy for him. You hear the anger at Donald Trump for not seizing on these opportunities. Those were two articulate answers from two different panels on CNN, and I guess the other one was Fox. But these people who make, good points, and I've heard it before when I'm out in the field talking to people too. And if you're a Republican, you have to say, on the immigration issue, why are you talking about cats? Why are you not talking about the border in a more substantial way? You get to it at some point, right? Well, yeah, you get to it at some point. You get to the end, and people did remember that, but they're there at CNN, tasked with watching the whole debate. Is everybody getting through? I was getting exhausted by minute 85, and then he leaves the good stuff for the end. And I'm thinking of that, if I'm in this situation, and the moderators are being this way, you could have so many of those people in those focus groups talking about the good line, not a canned line, but a natural line in the way of like Reagan's, which I think was probably a canned line. There you go again. Going after the moderators, look at what these people are doing. This is your media. These are the people that are telling you things about me, right? Do you trust these people? Something like that. But when you talk about the crime stats, all you have to do is beseech the audience to listen to and say, what's the nearest city to you? Do you feel that city's safe? Do you feel like things are better? Do you feel like your groceries are, less expensive than they were under my administration?
Have you gone into a CVS lately? What was your experience?
Correct. Everything's locked up. You can't, this is actually true. The other night I was in the city, I was trying to get painkillers and I was like, fuck it, I'll screw it, I'll deal with it. Because I had to find someone to unlock it. And it's like, no, this is an annoyance in my life that actually kind of matters to me because writ large, it's a big thing. But Donald Trump has absolutely zero discipline. He's so obsessed with personal grievances. As I said, the people saying, it's genius that he mentioned the crowd size. No, it's not genius. I know
that's
that.
Not genius.
You know that.
No.
Everybody knows that.
But if you look back, but I will say, Moynihan, if you look back at, like I did at the transcript, he brings up the economy a lot, to his credit, and he did bring up immigration a lot. He did manage to weave both of those things into his messaging throughout. There was just so much shit being thrown at him, it got lost. Here's another, this is David Chalian over on CNN talking about a focus group on the economy. And watch this.
Who better understands problems facing people like you? Before the debate, 39% said that about Harris, 43% Trump. And look at how that flips for Harris. After the debate, 43% of the debate watchers say that she understands problems facing people like them. 40% say that about Trump. Now, look at the economy here. Who would better handle the economy is what we ask. Going into the debate, before the debate, 37% said Harris, 53% Trump. After the debate, again, margin of error stuff here, but numerically she lost a little ground. 35% said so after the debate, that she would better handle the economy. 55% said Trump.
That's the risk in just dodging and weaving if you're her on these answers. Like, she threw out the same nonsense about how she's going to, I don't know, give up people $25,000 loans and she's going to help small businesses. People don't buy it. They don't trust her to handle the economy. They know Trump can do it. And I think his last message about, were you better off 4 years ago? Why hasn't she done anything in these past 3.5, may have resonated with some people, notwithstanding all the stuff we're talking about. All right, I want to pick up on something else. Moynihan, you said 20 minutes ago, you thought she won on style. Okay, I know why you said that. That because she was disciplined. She did not run after the liver snaps like Strudwick and Trump. But I want to ask your opinion as three guys, because my impression was men are not going to respond well to this. Left-wing men, yes. But like normies, who are... Not that you're not normal if you're left-wing. I mean leftist.
Yeah, I'm neither left nor normal. But yeah, I'm a special
it's true. I might need a different focus group. Yes. Camille.
But I do love chasing after women, so continue.
Okay. You tell me whether this is going to fly, this kind of behavior with male voters, because she's doing poorly with them. Trump's got like a 13 to 15 point margin over her with male voters. She's got like a 10 point margin over him with female voters. You can do the math. She needs to get those numbers up, and he needs to keep those numbers high on his side. And they tend to vote in equal proportions in these elections. So it's right now you'd say he's got a bit of an edge, and that may be reflected in some of the polls. In any event, I'm watching her behavior last night. I'm thinking we haven't had a female president in 250 years. And sadly, there's all sorts of reasons for that. But are American men going to make this woman the first one with her harumphing and her facial expressions and her tisking? And here are some examples of some of that. Let's play a little bit of this video.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. During the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. It is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy consistently over the course of his career. Attempted to use race to divide the American people. These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
All right, so that was her nasty personal insults. Here are the faces on top of that. Okay, what? There goes the hand on the chin. What? What? Oh, it's a cackle. Oh, I'm confused. Why do you confuse me, Orange Man? Oh, there he goes again. Head shake. No, it's not true. It's not true. By the way, I think that was on the accusation she bailed out BLM rioters, which she did. Oh, no. What? Look at her. Furrowed brow. He confuses me. Oh, why am I having to stand up here? Haughty chin up. Why have they subjected? My feeling is American men are not going to respond well to any of that.
Does anyone want to take that one?
Who's trying to take the
Who's
bullet?
going to be the representative of the American man here?
I don't know, but I text you guys because my wife was watching. She's on the West Coast, so it was a little earlier. She was watching with my 2.5-year-old son, and he caught a little bit of the footage, the side by side, and he said, "I don't like him. He's rude. I like him."
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's our focus group.
Congratulations on having a communist child. Little Che Guevara.
Yeah,
over there.
It is what it is. He can't vote either, so it doesn't matter.
Well, if we're doing that, I'll tell you that my 13-year-old said, why do the moderators only fact check her? Or him?
Yeah.
Him. Why do the moderators only fact check him? I was
And what
like,
did
yep,
you
you
say?
got it. All right, so what's happening here? Are you guys having too much soy? Do you not understand how?
I don't see it. What'd you say? What was that?
She said, you are drinking
Are
too
you having too much soy?
Yeah. I was going
My
to take
son
this
is.
opportunity to come out on this broadcast, but apparently not today. I just want a big audience, but everyone should know.
Yes.
No, I don't see it. Like, I look there are the ones with the hand on the chin. I noticed at the time, and I said, "This is a bad look."
Not a
And
good
I
look.
saw that Frank Luntz, who I've done a couple of focus groups with, actually, was all over that. And then people were all over him. He said, men are not going to respond to this. And I don't know, because the split screen stuff, I don't think she performed well. I just think that's a kind of natural thing. It didn't affect me in any way. But again, I don't think that anything is moving anybody in this debate. Is that what you typically have after these debates is about a 1 or 2 point shift, and then one of those points usually contracts, sometimes both of them. And I just don't think anyone's being moved by this at all. And especially people,
yes, you may be right on the undecideds, but some people felt very moved by her performance, like Michael Steele, former head of the RNC. Listen to SOT 36.
Yes.
She spanked that ass. She prosecuted when she needed to prosecute. And all other times she was presidential.
Every once in a while.
And he looked small, he looked withered, he looked beaten, but most importantly, he looked pissed. And there's nothing worse than a pissed bigot on the stage with a woman he can't control.
Did you hear how it started? Did you hear the top of that soundbite? Can we replay it just so that it sneaks up on you?
She spanked that ass. She prosecuted.
Yeah, that was
she
it.
needed to prosecute, and all other times she was presidential.
You can bail. That's enough. She spanked that ass.
He practiced that. Yeah. He had that one planned.
Good Lord.
You think?
I like Kim to this. I don't know why.
Yeah,
was it that bad? Did she spank his ass?
I don't know if she spanked his ass, but the old saw from Michael Steele that there's nothing worse than a pissed bigot on stage who hates a lady. I'm like, what? Is that an old saying where he comes from or something? Yeah.
Look, I would agree with the assessment that she won. I think yesterday I ended up with maybe a C- D situation in terms of her grade. Maybe I think ended at a C. But it's by default. I think the actual issue here is that Donald Trump really lost the debate given the circumstances. And ABC News, I think, as we've said already, shamed themselves in the debate, and Kamala survived. She wasn't a total disaster. Did she answer the questions straightforwardly? No, she didn't. She did the strategery you would expect her to do here. There was one piece in that sequence of SOTs that I wanted to call out, though, the thing about race, that Donald Trump is constantly trying to divide us with respect to race. This is the equity administration we're talking about. The very
it's unbelievable, Camille. Thank you for raising that.
To the office was pass all of these pieces of all these executive orders were instituted, and she's still focused on trying to do minority set-asides. They never stop talking about race. Absolutely never. Was it smart for Donald Trump to talk about whether or not she identifies as black or Indian? Probably not. Does she try to capitalize on race all of the time? Yes, absolutely. She is the vice president of the United States in large part because of the shape and shade of her genitalia. That is who Democrats have been for the last couple of years, and they've shown no signs of stopping. But it is interesting that the only question about race yesterday was not about white supremacy. It wasn't about systemic racism or any of the problems we need to fix in this country. It was about a completely stupid, rather innocuous, in my estimation, question that we've blown out of proportion that Donald Trump asked at this weird journalist of color event that he participated in. I think that is an interesting indication of just like how crazy we went in 2020 and just how unserious people are about these issues, like the reparations bill that failed in California. These people were never serious about those issues. They're not serious about them now, but we know who the people are who are actually engaged in this kind of dividing people with respect to race. And it's never been obvious to me that Donald Trump is that person. It's absurd.
Is anyone else still stuck on shape and shade of her genitalia?
Every time he says it, I have to go for a walk because I have a very imaginative brain. And then I'm like, oh my God, why am I thinking about this? It's disgusting.
I want it to be visceral.
Yes. You were visceral, all right.
It is a gross way to do business. We can't assess candidate quality that way.
Yes.
That's what Joe Biden did. But that's not
the overall point is a good one. Here's what shape. Like, I don't know if we're obsessed.
So many things I won't say on the show right now.
I don't know. I don't think that's exactly what we're obsessed with. But okay. But here's what she said. To your point, she said, this was on the subject of his "when did she become black" thing. It's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. The gall, Camille. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know we have so much more in common than what separates us. And we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, especially by race. It's incredible that she had the nerve to say that, given, I mean, we have like segregated dorms and graduations and in some instances, lunchrooms in schools and academic exercises where the blacks are on the one side now and the whites are on the other side. In some instances, calling each other's names as some sort of thought exercise, all because of these bizarre DEI practices that she loves of being woke, which she says we should get more of. And this was one of those frustrating situations where you want Trump to then respond and shove it down her throat. But he doesn't exactly. All he does is try to rehabilitate himself on the Central Park 5 and, you know, saying she had to go back 50 years and they're destroying our economy. But it's like, oh, Trump, come on. He knows the answers to these questions.
I wanted to touch on your montage of her allegedly sort of male alienating facial expressions, which I didn't feel. So I guess I'm drinking the soy milkshake as well.
You are trained,
with the exception of the hand one. That was a bit much. But let's remember what we expected going into this debate, or at least what was a big topic, was like, oh, the mics are not going to be on, and there's big negotiation over that because everyone assumed that she wanted to do the I'm talking here thing.
Well, she did.
She did, right. But who said it at this debate? It was Trump. And then we had a big argument about this last night.
Oh, wait, let me play it, and then you tell me about the argument. Let me show him. Here it is, Sot 29.
She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Go ahead, Matt.
So every time that she has done this or other people have done that in that place, I think Hillary Clinton might have done that before. I forget now. I've wiped my brain clear of Hillary Clinton, thank God. But it was terrible. It was terrible when she did that before, right? And that she was planning to do this, or if she was going to do that this time, it would have been terrible now. She didn't do it. Maybe she wanted to, probably wanted to. But he did. And it was terrible when he did it too. And not even as a callback or a joke. It's just a bitchy little thing to do.
It worked for me. It worked for me. I laughed. I thought it was funny. And he was doing it for effect. He wasn't doing it because he was seriously concerned about being able to get a word in edgewise.
Of course, but
when she did it, it was severe. She did it 5 or 6 times in one night.
Totally true.
He did it once.
I'm speaking.
He made it explicitly a callback. And then he did it again later. But in that way, he did it in a slightly more subtle way. I thought it worked. It was one of his better moments.
It was part of what I think one of his mistakes was that yesterday he was the chief debater of two online trolls.
Fair.
That's true. These people, he's just going to debate everything that people have been memeing about. And this is when her facial expressions are actually the correct one, which is the kind of, what are you doing? Right? Like it's kind of Right, and I think that speaks to something that is attractive for her. It's a selling point, probably the selling point for her, which is that, aren't we tired of this? And aren't we tired of this guy being weird, talking about that they're going to come after your dogs and cats? What the hell is he talking about? Seriously.
I think that Megyn makes the point, this interesting one, about the transcript and reading the transcript. And that's a failure on his part, you know, because, I mean, we talk about grading on style, is that so much of this stuff, particularly in debates, is style. It's not style when you're writing an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. It's very specific. The stylistic thing here, in, you know, whether it's the dogs or the Central Park Five, is that Megyn says, you know, I read this and I got a lot out of it. It's like, well, what was masking that during the debate was all the other bluster and all the other, like, you know, debating these weird things and pulling you off into these little, even a debate needs a narrative. It needs a beginning, it needs a middle and an end, a callback at the end to the beginning, right? There's no narrative here. It seems scattershot. And that's why I say on her, stylistically, and not, you know, on substance, I have literally probably know less about what she believes now than I went in, but she kind of tried to stick to that. And at the end, when you have that moment, that Donald Trump looks at the camera, it does not surprise me that people in a focus group reference it because it was a strong ending. It was a very straightforward thing. The are you better off type language and why didn't you do it? Those two things can twin and they can make a good argument. But, you know, falling into these traps is the easiest thing. And it just shows that he might have good political instincts writ large, but he has them horribly on the debate stage.
Could you imagine if he had just turned to either of the moderators last night and said, am I debating you or am I debating her?
Exactly.
Like, what is going on?
I know,
So
Trump
many-
attacking the media works. It's gold. But no, I wanted to raise this moment. It was kind of interesting. Kamala got very high marks for her answer on abortion and playing up like the horrible dangers of women who are now in states where there are new, very restrictive abortion laws and the horror of them having to get on a plane next to strangers to go get that so-called care out of state. And she had a line in there which got a big reaction from a nurse who was on two-way with Mark Halperin this morning. Here's what Kamala said first.
Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that.
Watch this, the reaction.
I'm an emergency room nurse, and there is no circumstance where we would ever let a woman sit in her car and bleed out, regardless of the abortion law. Like, we would bring her in if abortion was like illegal, right? No circumstances. We would bring her in and give her emergency release blood. We would give her fluids. And the fact that she so blatantly gave such disgusting medical misinformation, like, just turned me off to her.
I really think that's interesting because she did this a lot, these sweeping, draconian claims about Trump, and especially on abortion, the rhetoric that she had. Meanwhile, his suggestion that there are states in the union where they would let a baby born alive die, he said, he made the point, he used the term, you could say kill. He was making the point it's not an active murder, but that they would let a baby attempted to be aborted that nonetheless lived and was delivered die on the table. That's true. That gets fact-checked. That's extreme. But these claims of hers, right, like medical personnel all over America, now they're just letting women bleed out in the parking lots. Good for this woman for getting on there and saying that's just bullshit and a total turnoff. She's an undecided voter. What do you make of it?
And it's also, Camille, you were looking at her policy claims about Trump, too. Like, there's going to be a minder. Can you rehearse those since you had those in your fingertips?
She was referring to Project 2025. And the first thing she insisted is that if Donald Trump is elected, he is going to pass a federal ban on abortion, which he's not said he would do. And that there would be a minder who is monitoring whether or not you've had miscarriages or something like that. So, and again, this is a recommendation from Project 2025. There's been no indication that Donald Trump would do any of this. And at the end of her saying all of this, the moderator says, "Thank you, Vice President Harris." And that's when Donald Trump has to interject, and he says, "None of that is true." She's doing it again. Those are false statements. And again, it is unfair when you're in a circumstance where the moderators are not willing to fact check your opponent. They're not willing to push back. They're requiring you to do all of this work. And then when you have things to say, they're pushing back on you. It is unfair.
And then
but
back
also,
to that cherry on top of the sundae, Daniel Dale, the fact checker at CNN, saying Trump lied 33 times and Kamala Harris lied once.
Yeah,
once.
Maybe. Right. I'd say maybe once.
Right, maybe.
That's once. At least once.
That's the nerve.
We can't
of
figure
this.
out if there was a second. Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to laugh, but like the state of media is dire. That's what ABC did. How CNN reacted. I don't know what the future looks like. I do know it's end times, and for very good reason.
I think the future is rosy in one sense, is the fact that if you look at the way the campaign has dealt with race issues and the DEI type stuff, and all the stuff that overwhelmed them in 2020, they've walked away from it.
Yep.
Why? Because they have to win an election, and they've understood something in the aftermath of 2020. People don't like it. And guess what? It's not just whiteys that don't like it.
Yep.
Hispanic people don't like it. Black men have been migrating towards Trump, not in enormous numbers, but enough that they're significant. You can say, wow, some polls 20%, et cetera. That stuff does not work. The media is very behind on this, and they're very behind on their own power, too. We're, you talk about Mark Halperin's show this morning on Two-Way, which you can see over Matt's shoulder. We're going to be on Mark Halperin's Two-Way show at 4 o'clock. And Mark Halperin is doing an end run around the media like all of us are. And after a while, people really, really are alienated by this stuff. I think that watching the debate moderation last night would have been a different instinct maybe 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. People are really fed up with it. And I don't say that just because of what I think about things or, our show or whatever it is. I see it, and we see it in the numbers. We see it in the numbers of people who are, coming to our show and coming to other people's shows, like coming to Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly doesn't need to be on Fox News. Glenn Beck doesn't need to be on Fox News. Tucker Carlson doesn't need to be on Fox News. That is an interesting shift for everyone, right? And for them to say we can keep doing this forever is a delusion.
It's a huge mistake on their part. I mean, we've seen for years now, decades actually, that trust in media has been plummeting across the board. There's very good reason why platforms like this are successful and are able to thrive. And ABC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, to the extent it spells doom, to the extent the apocalypse is on the horizon, it is definitely, it's with respect to them and their prospects for the future and their viability.
And also that thing we forget about is that also means that their power, their influence to their ability to fund the scale, even last night, is diminished. I think a lot of people who are critical of the media make the mistake of thinking that the media is as powerful as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It just really is not. It is not. There isn't a single media institution, legacy media institution, in my quick snap knowledge, that has more power than they did 20 years ago. And that is fascinating and interesting. It creates its problems. It creates mostly great opportunities. And I think for consumers, it's mostly terrific.
I mean, I love and agree with everything you guys just said, but I still think they play an important role. Like a night like that, where they had probably the only presidential debate in hand, and they were so biased, they're influencing a presidential election. It feels almost like cheating to me. It just felt, I realize we've gotten away from the presidential debate commissions, and I get why. And those were not perfect. We've gone over Chris Wallace's, bias in handling that. And there have been plenty of fall downs in those moments too. Candy Crowley. But this system isn't working because it's too important to allow a network like that with an agenda to have the sole control over the sole debate. And I realize, now we should say Trump shouldn't have agreed to it. I realize why he did agree to it. He thought he was agreeing to a pair of them, and the CNN one worked out, and he wanted to say, okay, I'm putting myself out there. Even last night, Trump went into the spin room. Did she? No. She's hiding from the media. We don't get to interview her. We have no access to her. She doesn't hold press conferences. She gave one interview to a fawning Dana Bash who fell down on the job. And now this is the one debate. And they tanked it. They tanked it for her. She's probably not going to do another one, and she might not do another interview at all, you guys. This is like really serious. As right now, while they're failing and they're falling, they're still in control of a lot of forums that matter. And it's just very disheartening to watch how low they've gone. I just can't believe that back in the day, the Rune Arledges of the world would have allowed something like this. And yet there it is.
Well, let's not forget also that there was a pretty good debate last time, and also consequential. Jake Tapper in particular, and I think Dana Bash was the other one. They did a good job
Jake Tapper
moderating.
must be the magic sauce, because when put on her own, Dana Bash fell down in that interview.
She needs a half a thing of Jake Tapper.
I hope that Kamala Harris flush in victory, as she did last night, which said, okay, we want another one. Let's do that. Let's have some. Because it looks like increasingly, to your point, Megyn, that after this, especially if they think that they have a lead and a bump coming out of this, is she going to do more interviews? No, I would imagine that she's going to do fewer. So let's get some of these scheduled. I think it would be wise for Trump to either pick actual independent people or an adversarial process, or even go into Fox News. Maybe she's feeling cocky. We need more, because we are not seeing enough actual examination of her as a candidate right now.
If he agrees to go on CBS or NBC, he deserves what he gets. And sadly, he'll bring the rest of us down with him. All right. In the last 20 seconds, why is it when you come on the MK show, you don't put my logo in the background, but when you go on Two-Way, you put their logo in the background? WTF.
Yeah.
No, they were going to put like Nicorette commercials. We said no to that, but we're getting a little money for this, so come on.
Great to see you guys. As always. I'll take you however I can get you. See you soon. Back tomorrow. We'll see you all then. You did not vote for this economic downturn and this high inflation, but you could be paying for it at the pump, the grocery store, and with growing stacks of unpaid bills. Financial stress can be crushing, and one solution could be donewithdebt.com. Done with Debt created new aggressive strategies designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or loans. Done with Debt can stand between you and your bill collectors. They negotiate with your creditors to write off balances, cut interest, and stop penalties. And the best news is Done with Debt is accepting new clients right now. But you need to hurry, because some of their debt strategies are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Let Done with Debt hit the debt reset button for you and make your money yours again. Visit donewithdebt.com or call 1-888-322-1054 now. Chat with one of their debt relief strategists for free. That's donewithdebt.com, donewithdebt.com. I said this before when you were on. I've had an evolution on you. I remember being on the chairlift with a friend of mine in December of 2021, I think it was, and she was reading your book. And anyway, it was a few months before I interviewed you. And I said, you should be careful, because, you sort of, if you take in the wrong information, then you're saying the wrong thing to everybody. And she was like, well, he has some really interesting things to say. You might want to look at it. So I did. Started looking at your book, started reading it, started looking up the sources that you cited in support. Then went to my team and said, let's check his sources. Let's see what other people say about his sources. Is he citing the right sources? And it turned into this long interview we did. And your claims checked out. The most controversial stuff that you get labeled a kook for saying, checked out time after time after time. And this is not a full endorsement of everything you've ever said, but my takeaway was this guy has been unfairly maligned by people who are so pro-vaccine that they just needed to silence him. So it works to the point where there's a fair amount of people who say like, oh, he's a kook. My friends at National Review, we pulled it, just not to insult you, but Jim Garrity, who I really like, said, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And there's similar, but I'll bet you he hasn't done half the work my team and I have to actually see whether that's true. So this censorship actually does have a negative effect on you.
Yeah. I mean, what I say to people is show me where I'm wrong. Just show me the facts, because, I'm susceptible to change. If somebody shows me where I'm wrong, I'm not going to stay on an opinion that is based upon a bad factual foundation. I'm accused constantly of promoting misinformation, but nobody actually is able to show me a single factual assertion that I've made that is wrong. And I'm sure there are some out there. We're very, very careful on social media. I probably have the most robust in-house fact-checking operation right now in the media. We have 350 PhD scientists, MD physicians on an advisory board that looks at the things that I post. None of them would stay with me if I was promoting misinformation, regularly or even occasionally. But if I do it, my reaction is, and I say this at the beginning of my book, show me if there's a fact in this book that you disagree with, and show me a counterfact, and we will change it. We've been through, I think, 12 or 15 editions of that book. And if somebody sends a letter to us and says, I spotted something on page 212 that is not true or that's challengeable, we'll just change it.
Well, here's what I think is happening instead. Here's what they're deciding just to shut you up.
I make occasionally, because I tweet a lot now. So the other day I made a tweet that said that there was Aegis missile systems in Ukraine. I was wrong about that. They were in Romania and Poland. I thought they were in Ukraine. I mistake because I'm tweeting very quickly all the time in response to current events. Sometimes I don't get that kind of robust fact checking. But immediately, the reader said this is wrong, and I went and looked it up, and then I printed an apology and errata, and that would be my response in any case where somebody says you're wrong about this. I want to correct the public record.
But no, what's easier is to just say, this is the narrative is, he's a nutcase on vaccines. He's against the MMR vaccine. Everyone knows that's important. We have to stop listening to him, as opposed to doing what you and I did on our 4-hour exchange, where I actually got into what you're actually claiming, what you've actually written, and said this. And we went to your worst critics. We went to the people who can't stand you and said, where's he wrong? And they gave us all their ammo, and we presented you with it, and you responded. That is how people learn. That is how people come to their own conclusion about, oh, he's right, or no, I don't believe it, or what. That's how journalism used to work and is supposed to still work. But instead, we get this from ABC News, which, as you point out, interviewed you and made an obvious cut on the subject of vaccines. And after the exchange that I'm about to show the audience, the anchor comes back on and says, to the effect of, he said a bunch of nonsense on vaccines, which we edited because he's full of it. Here's part of it.
You've said in the past that there is a correlation between vaccines leading to autism. That's totally been debunked.
Wait a minute, who debunked it?
We have not seen any kind of scientific connection from the CDC, the World Health Organization, the National Academy of Sciences. Those organizations
are captive agencies, Lindsay.
And so you think they're all in cahoots?
Yeah, they're all captive.
You've discussed the Kennedy family as, like any family, there are disagreements.
Right. So she cut out everything that followed. Then she offered a 33-second disclaimer on how wrong you are on vaccines, rebutting claims we didn't get to hear, just whatever you had said and what wound up on the editing room floor, which was longer than the 20-second exchange ABC chose to air.
Yeah, I mean, what I did after that with Lindsay is I laid out the scientific studies, which I cited. I cited the names of the authors of those studies, the in-house studies at CDC, et cetera, that actually confirm that link. And by the way, I didn't go on there saying I'm going to push this issue between autism and vaccines. She chose to ask me about it, and along with a kind of propaganda statement, it's completely untrue. It's been debunked. And when I pushed back on that and cited scientific studies supporting it, of which there are hundreds, she left her propaganda in place and cut mine out. And then at the end, gave this very unusual statement saying we have censored him because he was promoting misinformation. So it was, it ended with a kind of a defamation. But at least she allowed me on. One of the things that you did when you first let me on, it was at a time Megyn, that nobody was allowing me to speak. I was just a pariah in the media. I was exiled, and it was blanket. It was, wall to wall. I was just not allowed on. And you were one of the first people to have a conversation with me on this show. And you did something very unusual, which is you would interview me, and then you'd play a section of that interview, and then you would play your fact check. And people called me up and said, that's not fair what Megyn's doing, because she's she's after checking you rather than having an argument about you. And I said, what she's doing is the only way that she could allow me on. What she is doing is great. And I want people to do that. I want people to fact check me. People should not believe what I say. And they should not believe what CDC says. They shouldn't believe what the WHO says. In a democracy, you have to do your own research. That is part of the work of living in a democracy. It's part of your civic duty. And as a parent, you need to do that research to protect your children. Everybody don't just listen to your doctor. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. You need to do that to protect your child today. And what you did, Megyn, I said to people who were questioning that, I said, what she's doing is exactly what she needs to do to allow me for the first time to speak. So I was very, very grateful for the way that you handled that. You figured out a way to do that without enduring the kind of, typhoon of criticism and hatred that you have gotten if you had just aired me unedited.
Well, we wanted it to live. We wanted it to live on YouTube and Insta and all platforms that had been censoring you. And it did, and it does to this day. I mean, we've considered it a feat, right? We have 4 hours of RFK Jr. on all the most incendiary stuff, and it hasn't been censored even a little, even one time. And we appreciate it. Some of the stuff we had an actual back and forth on, like this is what somebody says, and some of the stuff I stole the last word with those, this is what his critics are saying about it. But I think people walked away from it really enjoying it. My critics and yours saying, I learned something, and they saw you in a new light, because all you need to do is talk to you to realize there's much, much more to you and your advocacy and what you're about than this one issue. You're a lifelong environmental lawyer who spent his entire career trying to clean up the rivers and the environment and the ocean from toxic chemicals, which are killing us. I mean, that's something even your critics would admit. So it's the vaccine lane that they've used to try to dismiss you. And there's much, much more to you. And that's one of the reasons I'm glad to see you run. I want to tell you about the amazing extreme altitude wines from the Bonner Private Wine Partnership. These flavors go great with any hearty meal and meat you're going to serve. They are unlike any wine you've ever tasted. Blackberry, leather, smoke, and little dark cherry. The wines are almost impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities. I have a great offer for you right now. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, that's BONNER privatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get wine for over 50% off plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you are a wine lover like I am. They've cut out the middleman, so you're not going to pay a big markup. Just visit Bonner, BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. Let's talk about TJ Holmes and Amy Robach, who are now officially out. At ABC News, they lost their jobs altogether. And before you say, oh, sad, they just fell in love, it happens outside of a marriage, and I understand all that, I think there is a very good reason why they lost their jobs. I think it was 2 things. The ridiculous PR behavior that they engaged in post the scandal breaking. They handled the media exactly the wrong way, in my view. And number 2, it came out that he had all these other alleged affair partners at ABC. And you tell me, Arthur, because my suspicion is they were in a position where, what are you going to do? You're gonna fire the black anchor and you're going to let the white female stay. That can't happen. She had to go too, even though that investigation appears to have only found her prior sins as being she had a bottle of liquor sealed in her office and somebody claimed she showed up drunk after some sporting event on the air, which I don't believe either. But I bet you if you cast a wide net, you could find 10 people who showed up drunk on the air at ABC at one point or another. So what do you make of it?
They're at-will employees. I mean, we get people who come into our office asking about these kinds of questions. They could fire them for any reason they want. In other words,
they
could just.
They definitely had contracts. They're not at-will employees. They definitely had contracts.
Could take them off. They could take them off the air. And
Yes.
Megyn, I have negotiated these 4-cause contracts, and the networks, they dig in so hard on basically firing them for cause is whatever the network kind of feels is for cause. They will not give you a definition. Does for cause mean it's someone who's been arrested? Does for cause mean someone who's been caught in an extramarital relationship? They keep it as general and as amorphous as they can. And as you saw the memo that was written by the head of ABC, who just said basically it was too much of a distraction internally for us and for the people inside ABC and externally. I do not see them winning a lawsuit, especially, as you said, the way they handle the media afterwards. There's pictures of them smooching and she's jumping on them and all over the place. It's just they didn't do anything to help themselves. They added fuel to the fire as opposed to putting the fire out.
Let me use just a disclosure. I'm friends with Amy. I think the world of her. I think that when you, the anchor, become the story, that's where it's problematic for the viewers. And I think that that's why they let them go. They became the story. And it's hard to separate them talking about someone else's scandal when there's one, to the viewers anyway, right involving those two.
See, I have a strong thought on this. I have a very strong thought on this. I think those two could have come out. They could have said on the show that the next day, because they were on the air one day with this scandal having been broken by the Daily Mail, and they could have said, we are very embarrassed. It's true. This was a private matter that we wanted to resolve privately, given the fact that we have kids and we have spouses, but we couldn't, given the Daily Mail report. And we are going to take a leave of absence to deal with this. And we hope that we can earn your forgiveness and trust when we come back. And then lay low. Stop with the very clearly orchestrated photo events in South Beach where they were all over each other, kissing and fondling, while their spouses, who they cheated on, are posting sad-faced pictures with their kids who look incredibly forlorn. That was a massive PR error. They 100% orchestrated it, in my opinion. And then I give you this. Even now, there's this picture broken. It's on page 6 of the two of them. She's after the news that they're out at ABC. What, Debbie? So Daily Mail, okay. Daily Mail exclusive. And there she is. This is, as my friend Donna, fellow lawyer, texted me, you guys. What a happy, non-performative embrace. Don't you routinely jump into Doug's arms after a nice lunch out? They're still doing it. They don't understand. No one looks at this and says, true love. They cheated on their spouses. They cheated on their children. Yes, it happens. It's sad. Act like it's sad. Stop projecting. I don't give a shit about anybody who I hurt.
All right, so my question to you, Megyn, is you said it was highly orchestrated, right? The South Beach photos. For what benefit? In other words, why?
Mark,
what benefit did they think
hello.
They were getting?
Let me tell you. Let me put it in terms that my friend Arthur can understand. This is a visual for the listening audience at home. This is what they're doing, Arthur. Right? It's an Italian thing. I'm putting the hand underneath the neck and motioning forward, like F off. We're living our best life. We're not cheaters. We're in love. That's not how you handle it. There are hurt people. Everyone can understand humanity and love relationships that go sour and all that and mistakes. People can understand that. This looks like, I don't give a shit who I hurt. Look at me. I'm in Miami. I'm having a great time. Screw my kids.
And that's what I think about all the time. When I saw that Christmas picture, and, it's a different world with all this technology. Back then, all right, it would be in the newspaper for a day and disappear. Now these kids are going to be seeing that for the rest of their lives. When they Google Christmas Day 2022, they're going to see their mom, cheating on their dad and vice versa. And that's heartbreaking. Megyn, look, what you're recommending they would have done in hindsight, it sounds brilliant.
I said it in the moment. My audience is my witness.
Okay, but let me ask you this. would it have worked? Have we become such a puritanical society? 2 police officers just got suspended. They're in a consensual relationship because they had sex in the locker room. Why should they get suspended for having sex in the precinct locker room? What did they do wrong? They got suspended. What did they do wrong? They're in a consensual
I
relationship.
would have been with you if they had just had an extramarital affair. Like it. What if 50% of marriages plus end in divorce? Like people obviously make mistakes, and it happens. But they handled it so poorly. They showed no remorse. And then it turned out that this guy's been fishing off the company pier for years with people who are his subordinates. So there was no way in which TJ Holmes was keeping his job. He was starting to look like a junior Matt Lauer. So he was getting fired because she was his equal. But the others were like young girls coming in who wanted a mentor, whom he allegedly took advantage of. The record on him was getting worse by the day, according to the Daily Mail and New York Post that have had exclusive reporting on this. And I do believe they were in a position, given today's climate, where there was absolutely no way where they could fire him and keep her. So in the end, they both got out. Like that relationship.
Wait a minute, Megyn, but
enjoy
why?
your embrace.
Based on what you just said, though, if they said, look, he was fishing off the company pier. It's not just this one issue. There's this other young lady and there's this other young lady and the investigation's ongoing. We're going to let him go. But for us, it appears she only did this one time
because
with a
they
person
have no
who is
courage. They could never save the white female anchor. Look what happened at NBC when I went there. And Tamron Hall used to host that hour with some other people. And the NAACP started writing letters to NBC. How could you replace this black woman with a white woman? Creating like a race war over it. It's like, my God, there are all sorts of considerations that go, why does everything have to be reduced to skin color? But I guarantee there is no courage at ABC. They would never have fired him and not her. No way.
I don't think that was ever a consideration. Going back to my point earlier, the reason why they had to remove them is because this was scandalous. They became part of the story.
They put them back on the air the next day after it broke. If this was such an obvious distraction and scandalous, they wouldn't have done that.
It wasn't going to work. And quite frankly, I can't debate either of you when you pull the kid card. There's no excuse when you're picturing these sweet, innocent kids, however old they are, seeing mommy on South Beach parading around. You don't win. And that's it. So that's why
everybody knows every time these women are throwing themselves at him, he thinks of his children, and that's what prevents him.
No. The line, actually, when I was younger, and I'm happily married, but one of my buddies would say, "Oh, she's hot." I'm like, "Yeah, she's hot, but not hot enough to only see my kids on the weekends."
Like many people, I am trying to eat healthier, and that is why I love good olive oil. And by good, I mean fresh. Olive oil packs the most flavor and the healthiest nutrients when it's fresh from the farm. That's a problem with the supermarket olive oils. They're not fresh. They can sit on the shelf for months, growing stale. I just had this experience. Okay, stand by. I'm going to tell you about it. This is why I like my olive oil direct from small, award-winning farms, thanks to a guy named TJ Robinson, also known as the olive oil hunter. This stuff is amazing. When I first tasted TJ's farm fresh oils, I fell in love with their amazing, vibrant flavors. They are delicious on everything that you use olive oils for. Salad, veggies, pasta, meat, fish, you name it. Now, I use olive oil. I make my own little salad dressing. I can't cook, but I make my own little salad dressing just because I don't want all the hateful eight in my dressing. And the one thing you have to have is good olive oil. Well, I ran out of TJ's. And so you know what I did? It's Harvest Fresh now. But you know what I did? I bought from the supermarket. And what else was I going to do? Couldn't call TJ. I don't know him just because he advertises here. And I could taste the difference. And not only that, my kids asked, "Did you do something different on the salad?" I was like, no, I'm telling you, there is a difference when it's fresh pressed. And that is why TJ created the Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club, which I clearly have fallen behind in and need to get on. And you should too. Thanks to this, and as an introduction to this club, TJ is going to send you a full-size $39 bottle worth of one of the world's finest artisanal olive oils for just $1. To help him cover shipping. See if you taste the difference. And best of all, there's never a commitment to buy anything, and you can cancel your membership at any time. Get your free $39 bottle for just $1 shipping and taste the difference freshness makes. Go to harvestfreshnow.com. harvestfreshnow.com for a free bottle and pay just that $1 in shipping. harvestfreshnow.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. I feel like it's a before and after moment for the profession. For me, this debate is not even about Trump and Harris. It's not about the presidential election. It's about what happened last night with what used to be a respected news organization just completely jumping into the tank for one candidate. I mean, not even, show me a Fox News debate. Show me one Fox News debate where the moderators have ever done that for the Republican candidate of choice, right? Where they've decided we want Mitt Romney to win and they sank everybody else. That you can't find that. This was a decision by ABC to get Trump. And while he didn't help himself, taking all of her bait and so on and so forth, ABC News emerged the most victorious in having done what they wanted to do and with the biggest loss in reputation. That's my view on it. How do you guys see it?
I think that this gave a lot of credence to my political tribe, which is that of the triple haters, the ones who don't like the presidential candidates from either party and also don't like the media. I mean, seriously, there's lots more that you cannot like about Kamala Harris after this, about Donald Trump, who performed horribly, I thought, and definitely ABC. The biggest problem with the ABC moderation, even thinking about it 12 hours later, is not even the asymmetrical fact checks. Sir, this is what you said is not true. Not even that, although that's what we noticed in the room at the time and couldn't believe because it was all going in one direction. The biggest problem is that Kamala Harris hasn't given any interviews, right? She's given one in 50 some odd days to CNN. She hasn't had her views challenged. So this is when you, as a moderator, follow up when she doesn't answer a question. Repeatedly, they asked Donald Trump to, sir, could you please answer the question? They almost didn't do that even once with Kamala Harris. And this is someone who's a new candidate and who has changed her positions really violently on at least a half a dozen big issues. And the way that she answers that is like, well, I've already answered that. Of course, I've answered how I've changed my positions. And then she doesn't actually answer. They did not follow up. That is the biggest bit of malpractice.
Not once. Not once. Let me just show you a little of the fact checking that was done of Donald Trump in short form. Watch.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But here you bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. As clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing.
Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
And now I am going to play a quick shot of ABC News fact-checking Kamala.
Give it a second.
That didn't happen.
Yeah. No, it's coming. Just hold on.
We need the room tone. It's because she only told the truth.
Yeah.
That's
why. Right. That's it, Camille.
And say that David Muir is a real credit to the profession and that's a brilliant moderator.
I'm voting for David Muir for president.
I'm voting for David Muir.
He'd thrown his hat into the ring until last night.
Yes, ABC won last night.
I tweeted out, why did they even need Kamala Harris there? Why did ABC even invite her?
She wasn't. Yes. We recorded late last night, about midnight, after a couple hundred glasses of wine, and I had
I needed that. I wish I'd been with you.
But it made it much more bearable.
Every time you're opportunity economy, you have to take a drink.
Opportunity economy. I had to smoke fentanyl every time I heard it. The thing is, and Megyn, you came up because I suggested you for this. I want to do this in the future in a very specific way, and I was kind of joking, but then quite serious about it. Is that I think that these should be just straight adversarial. You're interviewing somebody for the job of the presidency of the United States, the most powerful job in the world. These should be adversarial interviews. There should be two people, as ABC had it. One person should only ask questions of President Trump, and one person should only ask questions of Vice President Harris, and they should be their adversaries on both sides, challenging them on these issues. Because as I said last night, and this is a great question for me would be bring up the tweet about the Minnesota bail fund. We've had no one's had an opportunity to ask her this because, of course, she hasn't given an interview. And if she does, it's certainly not going to be to somebody who's going to ask her about that. Get an adversarial person, and they're on both sides, and have them fire questions at them and actually challenge them. It solves the whole thing, and it actually makes for entertaining television.
I said the same thing last night. I said that if they have another debate, it should not be with any of these news operations. It should be, I get to choose a moderator and you get to choose a moderator. There's going to be two from the outside. You know, we can each choose one. But this farce of we're going to entrust the future of the country to organizations like ABC News must end. It must end, and shame on any Republican who ever agrees to this shit again. Donald Trump cannot agree to another debate with one of these organizations again, or he gets what he deserves. This is the organization in which it's run by Kamala Harris's best friend, ABC News is these days. They hired Donna Brazile, debate cheater in chief. And I'm not suggesting she gave the questions to Kamala Harris, but you wouldn't be surprised to learn she had. You certainly, after watching that, wouldn't be like, I'm shocked that ABC worked to undermine Donald Trump in such a way. And they put themselves in that position.
I said, I'd be surprised because she didn't answer any of them. If she had them before, maybe she would have answered the questions that were asked of her, including the very first question. Literally the first question. No one comes back.
She's from middle class.
Yeah, of course. She's from the middle class.
Small businesses.
Yes.
Here it is. Here it is. Wait, let's watch that. It's top 12.
When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. His plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations.
Okay, keep going. Total dodge. Because we're not. That's obviously why we are not better off than we were 4 years ago. And yet I didn't hear him press her on that.
Didn't hear the moderators press her on that. I mean, the question's pretty simple. Are we better off? Are we not? She didn't even address the question, not even a little bit. And let's never leave Donald Trump off the hook on this. She said at the end of that thing, his only plan is to cut taxes and do what he's normally doing. Basically, his only plan in this whole debate was to cut taxes and to enact a tariff when it comes to the economy. And he had other stuff about immigration, whatever. But he didn't rise to the level. You can take that opportunity as the opponent in a debate. And you should never walk away from a debate and blame it on the refs, even if the refs are loaded against you. Conservatives and Republicans have for a long time used that to their advantage. Just look at Newt Gingrich, look at other people who in moments of high stress turned it back on and pointed out the unfairness or the loadedness of the moderator. He could have done that. He didn't do any of it. He took the bait over and over again from Kamala Harris and didn't take those opportunities when she was obviously flailing around as she did in her very first answer.
Yeah, I think that's right. And especially during the debate, I was surprised. I think when we were watching it, I might have even said this, that he didn't do, I mean, Newt Gingrich did it in such a grand way. I mean, a memorable way. I mean, you don't remember things from debates. His response about that question, the kind of dirty question that was asked of him, was terrific. And I think he was maybe prepared for it. But Donald Trump, at 1,000,000 points during this debate, could have said, I can't believe you guys are doing this. This is the way you're going to work against me? Do that. And also, by the way, he has the opportunity to, the first thing that he says every time she doesn't answer a question is say, by the way, Americans, keep in mind she didn't answer the question, and then answer your own question. So I think it's absolutely right. And you know, look, a very good column for people to read this morning is Jim Garrity over at National Review, because he did a great thing where he took every question, not the answers, every moderated question, and strung them together. It is really jarring to read them all together. You're like, wow, this is actually what was asked. But as Jim pointed out, and as a number of other people, people I've been talking to this morning, Republicans, he did poorly. He just objectively did not do well.
But can I tell you something? Can I say something on that? Look, I agree with you that Trump took all of her bait. He ran after her bait just like my Stradwick runs after his liver snaps. And that he did not do a good job of staying on his message and fact-checking her in all the places where he could have. But I actually went back, I rewatched it again today, and then I read the transcript of it carefully, as you can see with my little Post-its. And Trump actually did a better job than I thought he did, trying to bat down her attacks on him. He was attempting, because she would bring up a lot of stuff about him that was not true, or that was potentially damaging. And so I think he did feel the need to say, that's a lie. Here's why that's a lie. Don't be worried about, for example, my tariffs. Here's why. And then he would pivot back. But she was given free rein. She was doing what one should do during a debate, which is just deliver your message, not answer the question asked, make it into an attack on your opponent. And then he felt the need to respond to her attacks and then would try to say something offensive or affirmative. But I think we all walked away with the impression that he wasn't doing a good job because it was just constant. You did not vote for this economic downturn and this high inflation, but you could be paying for it at the pump, the grocery store, and with growing stacks of unpaid bills. Financial stress can be crushing, and one solution could be donewithdebt.com. Done with Debt created new aggressive strategies designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or loans. Done with Debt can stand between you and your bill collectors. They negotiate with your creditors to write off balances, cut interest, and stop penalties. And the best news is Done with Debt is accepting new clients right now. But you need to hurry because some of their debt strategies are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Let Done with Debt hit the debt reset button for you and make your money yours again. Visit donewithdebt.com or call 1-888-322-1054 now. Chat with one of their debt relief strategists for free. That's donewithdebt.com, donewithdebt.com. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Peter, let me start with you on your reaction to the fact that he did it. He actually got up on the stand and it's ongoing.
It really seems like he did it against the advice of counsel, but I think his lawyers did a good job of setting the record for any appellate issues that, Judge, this may have gone differently if all the financial crimes and the side of the road incident and all that didn't come in, Judge. Maybe this would have been different, especially if this goes poorly for our client. They might as well have said, because this is going to be an appellate issue. If it goes poorly, if he gets convicted, they testified. If all this other stuff wouldn't have come in and now he's got to explain himself. Now he's got to talk to this jury. But to me, it seemed like he was pretty resolute. He wanted to talk to this jury regardless of what his lawyer said.
Ronnie, I see him up there and I think to myself, this is a guy who always thinks he knows better. This is a guy who's such a skilled and effective and successful for much of his life liar. He's used to doing it and he is convinced that he and he alone can bring this jury over to the promised land. What do you make of it?
I agree. I said last night I would put this in the legal pantheon of bad ideas for him to take the stand. I thought his defense was frankly doing a pretty good job of creating some doubt. I didn't think this was necessary. I thought the only thing you could do is talk your way into jail. But obviously he's very comfortable in his home court and he feels like these are his people and he can talk to them.
It's great. So this courtroom, as I understand it, actually has pictures of his granddad and maybe great-granddad who were the prosecutors there, the lead prosecutors in that jurisdiction. He comes from a long line of solicitors, meaning chief prosecutor in the district. It's his courtroom. He's familiar in it. He's tried cases in it, I'm sure, as a trial lawyer himself. And there he is up there. Just one more time, all I can do is spin this jury. I can spin all the evidence I've heard so far. And he is, I believe, guilty. I don't know whether he's guilty, but I believe he did it. And so he's a master manipulator. Even if you think he didn't do this, but he just did all those financial crimes, he is a master manipulator. And you can see him up there. One of the things I noticed, Peter, is he's talking about the dog collars down at the kennels. He's like, yeah, we're down there. The dogs have 5, maybe 6 collars normally down there that track them. Oh, see, it's me, Alec Murdoch. I just want to help you, members of the jury. That's how precise I am when it comes to facts and wanting to be your very good assistant. I just came up here to set the record straight because you've been so misled by the big bad prosecutor.
Absolutely. And I think that he's spot on with how the defense is performed in their theory of this case is all, you can't prove this. There's not enough evidence. It was a bad investigation. There's reasonable doubt here. And I don't understand. I think there are some cases where the defendant can testify, can do a good job, can help his or her case. But in this situation, when you're saying the investigation was horrible, they don't have enough evidence, they missed evidence, they can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, just to put Murdoch up on the stand is going to create issues with exactly what you're saying. People are going to pick apart everything he said. It's either too detailed or it's not detailed enough. That's too simple of an explanation or it's too complicated of an explanation. I don't see how he helps his case when your theory is they can't prove it. They don't know what happened, and it's up to them to prove what happened in that 15 or 17-minute period of time.
Ronnie, it seemed to me, given the way they began his direct testimony, and I'll play part of this, there was a reason he took that stand, and it was the Snapchat video that Paul, his son, the victim, one of the two, took right before the murders that we've had multiple witnesses testify has Alec Murdaugh's voice on it. It was, according to the prosecution's timeline, I think within 6 minutes of the murders. Alec had told investigators he wasn't there at the time, that he was back at the house taking a nap. And this video is the closest thing we've had in the case to a smoking gun, showing that Alec misled investigators. He was clearly there moments before the murders. He was not back at home sleeping. And that is how they kicked off his testimony. It was stunning because they led with this. So clearly this is the main, there's a rule of primacy and recency with the jury. And frankly, it's true for any speech you give too. And what it means is the listener only remembers the first thing you said and the last thing that you said. And everything in the middle gets mucked up. So there's a reason they started with why he was on that Snapchat video. Do we have it? All right, listen.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
As my addiction evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking. It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be a policeman following me in a car. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Paul, don't talk to anybody without Danny with you. All my partners were just repeatedly telling me that. I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot test from my hands. I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts.
Ronnie, what did you make of that?
Well, I agree with you. If there was a moment that would have compelled him to the stand, it was the fact that he had lied to investigators about his whereabouts at the kennels. But for that fact, I don't think the state really had much of a chance of winning this case. So if there was a moment that he had to speak to, it was this moment. And that explanation is terrible. It's terrible. The idea that the drugs made me lie. It's a Monday. He's already testified it was a work day. He was completely lucid to go to work that day. He was completely lucid to have dinner with his family. He was completely lucid to drive into town to tend to his mother. But at the moment the investigators showed up and he had to speak to them for the first time, it was the drugs that caused him to tell a lie. And then on a going forward basis, he just maintained that lie. And it was also, according to his testimony, his distrust of SLED. I mean, that the family held the solicitor seat for 100 years, that they are SLED, they are law enforcement in Hampton County. So the explanation is preposterous.
Did you hear, Peter, did he claim that he took drugs after finding the bodies? Because Ronnie's got a good point. He was doing all this stuff. He looked fine. We saw a videotape of him about an hour prior to that where he's dealing with the family, he's dealing with the tree that they're replanting. He did not look like somebody who was out of his mind. Did he claim that he saw the bodies and he took a bunch of drugs and they drove him out of his mind and that's why he lied to SLED?
No, he specifically said it was his addiction, ongoing addiction, which this guy's getting multi-million-dollar verdicts while he's a drug addict on these pills. And I thought he said a very important word in that explanation, and that was these drugs and this addiction create paranoia. And if I'm the attorney general and I get up there and I say, so you were paranoid, you started to hear something, and that would make you run down and do bad things, right? Like lie to law enforcement. And then you spin that into, you get this news on 6-7, they were on to you, it's crashing down, Mr. Tinsley's coming after you, you think Maggie and Paul might have sold you out, and now you're paranoid. I think that's an easy thing to flip for the AG's office. I think they are sitting over there salivating. They cannot wait for cross-examination. I expect it to be a long cross-examination.
And we don't know. We're taping this today at 1 p.m. Eastern. We don't know how long the direct is going to last and when the cross will get started. I'm thinking if you're Dick Harpootlian, you want to make the prosecution get started today. You'd much rather not give them the fresh overnight to do all their prep and sick them on your client the next morning. I don't know. What's your guess on how long the direct testimony goes on?
I mean, I think that they're going to continue to go on for most of the day today, but I think you're exactly right. I think they're going to have them start cross. But because it's going to be such a long cross, I think there's no way they don't get the overnight to prep at least some questions tomorrow.
There's another word that Alec Murdaugh used on the stand today that jumped out at me, just as a human, as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, and it was he apologized to his relatives for lying in that bit that we just showed part of. I mean, he's admitting now that he lied to the authorities about it when he said, "I never went down to the kennels that night prior to finding their dead bodies." And he says, "I would never do anything intentionally to hurt them," meaning Maggie and Paul. Intentionally. Who would say that? Who would say that? You would say, "I would never hurt my son. I would never hurt my spouse, ever." Like the placeholder of like intentionally in his own mind, I feel like that's sort of his own justification from having done it. Maybe he's telling himself it was the drugs that made him do it, or it was the outside pressures that made him do it. But like the real Alec Murdaugh wouldn't do it. I just thought that was an odd word that jumped out at me. What did you make, Ronnie, like listening to him today? Because of course he did. Okay, so he denied that he killed them. He admitted that he lied about being at the kennels prior to finding the bodies, right around the time of the murders. What else jumped out at you so far that was meaningful about what he said?
Well, what's jumped out at me so far, not about his testimony so much, but they keep panning to the audience, and to see the reactions in the audience. We can't see the jury. I'd love to see how they're reacting right now, but not a tear has been shed. Not even Buster, not his sister, not his brother. I mean, everyone in attendance is emotionless, which is really striking. So if they're my proxy jury, if the jury's receiving it the same way, then it may be falling on deaf ears. I thought the problem for his testimony was not so much the cross, which we know is going to be withering. I mean, he has to stick the landing on the direct. I mean, if he can't deliver that, if he can't emote and make that connection, then we don't even need to talk about the cross. And again, if the audience is any measure of the jury, I'm not seeing any impact whatsoever on the people inside that courtroom.
So, Peter, what's interesting is, yes, he is slick. I mean, I was kind of like, he's so slick. As soon as he took that stand, he was so casual. And forgive me for using this word in this context, but he was kind of likable. I mean, the way he talks, there's something about him that's kind of likable, but you don't like him. And that's what he's up against, because this jury, they're not going to fall under his spell. The odds are against that, because even though he has this likable way of talking, they've gotten to know him. We've heard with the last couple of days of testimony, we heard about how he stole money from, was it a cop or a relative of a cop who got shot, and he was trying to bring a case on that guy's behalf, and he stole the money. He stole the money of his housekeeper who died, where he pursued that lawsuit, and he got $4 million, and he didn't tell the young boys about it. He kept it for himself. Meanwhile, the boys were facing financial hardships. He didn't, the jury, I'm going to guess, even if they don't think he committed these murders, arrives at this relationship with him, hating him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. He's definitely, there's nothing wrong with saying he's a likable guy. He went through his whole career. That's how he got all these clients. That's how he got all these verdicts. That's how he lived his entire life, was being likable. And that's why he was able to keep up the scheme as long as he was, because he's a likable guy. But at this point, it's once you really know him, he's not a very likable guy. And I think some testimony came out yesterday. He stole money from his closest friend who was dying of colon cancer. I mean, it does not stop with what this guy is capable of, which is exactly the reason that they keep propensity evidence out of cases like this, which is, I think that's going to be an interesting discussion on appeal.
Explain that. Explain that.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff to not like about him, but Mark Ball, one of his law partners yesterday, and I know Ronnie knows much more about this than I do, because I know he's been involved in some of this. But Mark Ball yesterday, I thought, put it perfectly. He's a jackass. I don't like him. He's a bad guy for stealing money. But just because he's done all that does not then mean he's done what he's accused of doing here in this courtroom. Doesn't mean he didn't do it. But
we have a little bit of that. We'll play it, and then we'll get Ronnie to respond. Go ahead.
When September the 2nd hit, it changed everything that I knew about Alec. I would have never believed that a guy that, was like family would have ever stolen from me, would have stolen from his family, would have stolen from his clients, or any of that. And so immediately you've got this rage, this emotion that you've got. And then on the 3rd, we go through this whole ordeal of determination. And then the 4th, it hits, and you're like, did the jackass kill himself because of anything else? And then as time progressed on and you see the scope of it, I mean, I don't know the guy that after September the 3rd and leading out, I don't know who that guy is. I mean, that's not Alec that I knew, right, and Alec that I loved, and Alec that all of us loved.
Just to set that up, Ronnie, for the audience before I get to you, that was him on cross-examination. He was Alec Murdaugh's witness, and he's talking about how 3 months after the double murders, Alec Murdaugh staged a fake attempted murder on himself. They said it was an attempt to suicide by, with help from somebody else so that he could get his remaining son a $10 million life insurance policy. Many don't believe that. They think he just was trying to engender sympathy for himself or try to make it look alternatively like the murderer's still out there and he's after me. That's more the prosecution side. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, so Mark Ball, I thought he was a compelling witness. I thought he was a real boomerang witness, right? So the defense calls him, really for two purposes. One, to say that the investigation was sloppy because Mark had visited the scene as well and saw things there that disturbed him. We all heard that testimony. But also,
like a golf ball size of piece of Paul's skull, which both made you feel like sick and horrified about the nature of this crime, but also reminded you, what was that doing there? Like why the defense is doing a good job of showing us how crappy the SLED managed the crime scene. Sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, no, the forensics are terrible. And if there's a sweet spot for the defense, it's hang on the motive, hang on the forensics, right? But so they bring in Mark for that purpose. And by the end of it, Mark has to sit there and catalog all the different thefts that Alex engaged in, all the different victims that he left behind, and then culminate with that testimony that you just played that said, I knew the guy for 30 years. Now looking back on it, I don't think I know him at all. So he is this chameleon. He's a skilled and cunning liar. And it's not just the theft of money, but it's the theft by deceit. And it's Alex's practice of when he's caught in a lie, he's that guy that will not admit it until you've got both shoulders pinned on the mat and a 10 count. And then he'll concede it, but then he'll move on to the next story.
For many parts of the country, February weather is cold and unforgiving. The days are short and sunlight can be hard to come by, and those days relaxing by the pool seem all too far away. But when you have a Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas, you can enjoy the best of a pool with the therapy of a hot tub, even in the middle of winter. Michael Phelps Swim Spas come in a variety of sizes to complement almost any yard, even if it's a small one. Michael Phelps Swim Spas by Master Spas have a water current so you can swim, you can do aquatic exercises, and you can just have fun with the kids. This is going to reinvent your family time. The water buoyancy will relieve pressure on aching joints. Enjoy pure relaxation in the massage therapy seats of the swim spa. And since it's heated, you can use it year-round in any climate. Michael Phelps Swim Spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas, the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. You are going to love your Michael Phelps Swim Spa by Master Spas. Go to masterspas.com. Put in the promo code MK to save $1,000 on a Michael Phelps Swim Spa or $500 on a Master Spas hot tub. Masterspas.com, promo code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. Let's talk about your backstory, Nick, and how it happened to you, how you found yourself addicted and how bad it got.
How did a nice guy like me wind up addicted and doing what I do now? Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned the fact that all families are touched. They say 1 out of 10 people are predisposed towards having an addictive personality, and 30% of families have been touched by addiction. So it touches each and every one of us. So this is not just something that happens to a certain group. It's the great equalizer. That's one thing that I grew to find out. Yeah, it's and we're so confused as to how to understand this problem and how to treat it. So often I think that we look at this problem of addiction, we look at it so often as a supply side problem and not a demand side problem. We talk about fentanyl and coming into the border from Mexico, and that's a problem, having too much of it, awash in our society. But what we're not looking at closely enough is, why do we have the demand? Why are we so thirsty for losing ourselves in addictive substances, whether it's pharmaceuticals, or whether it's alcohol, or whether it's digital. It's what is our emptiness all about that we're seeking escape and numbing in all the wrong places. And so we don't look at that part enough, because we could shut down the border and shut down all the fentanyl, but people have been getting and escaping their pain for a very long period of time. So my backstory, how I landed here, I'm the son of Greek immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself. I was 3 years old when we came to New York from Greece. My father was 13, 14 years old when the Nazis invaded northern Greece, and witnessed most of the men in his village were murdered and had to hide in the mountains and escaped to Greece penniless. So my father had seen a lot of horrible things in his life as a young man growing up when he escaped to Athens. And my mother had survived a devastating earthquake. Now we're speaking about devastation in Hawaii, but she had a natural disaster on her island of Cephalonia. So my parents had lived a pretty hard life when they emigrated to the U.S. in the mid-1960s. So I was the child of Greek immigrants who had struggled. And in that struggle, there was a lot of dysfunction. My parents had a lot of love in their hearts, but you don't go through stuff like that and not have some emotional scars. And so, I grew up in New York City, good kid, middle class, lower middle class background, but I went to the Bronx High School of Science. I was a smart kid. I tested well. I played sports a lot, and I overcame a lot of, maybe let's call it that childhood dysfunction. But my parents always instilled a sense in me of get an education and have a better life. They came here to have a better life for me. So, and I did, and I've talked and written about this because when people of my parents' generation or the greatest generation, people have seen some real hard things in their lives. They have a pretty profound sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. And the children of those folks sometimes have a little bit more of a struggle because, by the time I landed in college and I went to Cornell, upstate New York, I know you're a fan of upstate New York, and I've gone to school there as well. My wife went to Syracuse, I went to Cornell, and I got out of school, and I had the quintessential existential crisis early on. I didn't know, my friends were all going to graduate school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had a profound sense of imposter syndrome because I was lower middle class, and a lot of my peers were from different backgrounds than I was. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I sort of drifted into a career, and I was working a corporate job right out of school in 1986. And I had the opportunity to work at a nightclub in Midtown Manhattan, the Copacabana, the original Copacabana in New York. Wow. And part of my background is I had been a martial artist. I had a black belt in Japanese karate. That was I did a lot of sports. I played basketball, football, track, but I did this karate, and karate was sort of my gateway into being the doorman at the Copacabana in 1986 when I was frustrated with my corporate day job. And it was sort of an escape. It was a way to sort of live almost a double life where I could, kind of live this alternate world that was exciting and fun. And eventually I quit the day job and kind of got deeper into the night job. And eventually that led into me opening my own restaurant and nightclubs in 1988 in Lower Manhattan. And this was sort of this was a pretty cool time in New York. New York was very exciting at that point. There was a downtown New York scene with the art worlds were colliding with the music industry. And there was, for a middle-class kid from Astoria, Queens, which is where I was from, this was a very seductive world. And so I was 24 years old. I was in New York Magazine as the New York's youngest nightclub owner. And it was intoxicating, literally and metaphorically. And eventually I fell into very bad habits. And so within a few short years, I wound up pretty horribly addicted. And I had one of these awakenings where I was realizing that I was in this, the New York nightlife world, which still exists today, the Page Six sort of glossy. We had a lot of celebrities would come into, again, I'm 24, 25, 26, and we had Tom Cruise and Uma Thurman and John F. Kennedy Jr. were regulars at my night spot downtown. And for a kid with humble beginnings like I had, it was, as I said, intoxicating, but also confusing. And by the time I was in my early 30s, it was all spiraling out of control. Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York, and he had an anti-nightlife task force. And in pretty short order, I fought the law and the law won. I had my liquor licenses revoked because the reality was at that point, I was not a very good steward of these businesses because I was struggling with my own personal addictive demons. And it started with alcohol and cocaine, and eventually it did turn into heroin, which in my entire life, I never would have believed that would have happened because I was raised with parents that had taught me about character and integrity, and yet somehow I lost myself in this world. And what I discovered, and so my addiction got so bad after my nightclubs were shut down in 1995. At that point, I was totally rudderless. I was now left without an identity, without a career. I had some resources still left, but I was broken spiritually, emotionally, physically, and went through a really terrible 2 or 3 year period of trying to go in and out of treatment programs to get better. I'm sure you can relate with your sister because it's pretty treacherous waters to navigate, going in and out of detoxes and hospitals and trying to figure it out and that's the terrifying part for most addicts when you try to get better. Because initially, a lot of addicts don't want to get better. They want to go back to when they were able to moderate their usage. They want to go back to when it was manageable. And I tried to do that for a period of time until I proved to myself that I couldn't control the addiction anymore. And then when I really tried to stop and I couldn't, that was the terrifying period. And I became convinced at one point that I was just going to die and implode. And I almost did. Eventually, my bottom
then you
was,
did. You kind of did.
As far as the doctors are concerned, I did. I was asystolic without a heartbeat. I had a fatal overdose where my heart stopped for over an hour and 15 minutes. I was at Cornell Presbyterian, and this is before they had Narcan and all sorts of medications that can revive you. And so I wound up being barely resuscitated after an hour and 15 minutes. My parents were at my bedside vigil. I was in a coma. I was on life support, and I wasn't expected to survive the first 24 hours. My organs began to shut down. They thought I wouldn't make it to the morning. And I did. I survived. But then they told my family that I was going to be in a vegetative state because I had too much oxygen lost to my brain. So if I were to survive, I would be a vegetable. And when I came out of it about 2 weeks later, the only permanent physiological damage, I lost most of the hearing in my left ear. So I did have, and I had really bad tinnitus where there was this really loud ringing. But when I came out of that coma and, I didn't have a classic white light experience, which I was pissed off about because I'd always been interested in white light experiences and I didn't have one, but I felt profoundly different. Something had shifted within me, and I felt I wasn't put on this earth just to lose myself in this addictive gerbil wheel of just self-destruction. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of me sort of saying, I'm going to change my life, and I'm going to try to First and foremost, I had to put out the fire. I got connected very heavily to a 12-step program, and I started seeing a therapist, and I was able to stabilize my addiction. And then I went back to school, and going back to school gave me a container to kind of channel my energy into and to start helping other people. And that started giving my life the meaning that I never had as a shallow nightclub owner living in the most superficial of worlds. And then I began to realize on the societal level, we're an empty society. We're obsessed with materialism. Our values are upside down. And for a lot of people, addiction is about emptiness. It's about your life has no intrinsic meaning or purpose. So why not just self-medicate or escape? And so that was a lot of the insights that I had in my own addictive struggle. I knew that if I didn't create a life of meaning or purpose, I was going to implode. And that's been I celebrated 23 years of sobriety a few months ago.
Wow.
Of continuous sobriety. And it's been in that process of getting my life together that I've now been able to create programs, and I've been a university professor, and I've taught the treatment of addiction, and I've begun to understood the societal issue of there's something wrong with our society. And as part of that work, I started seeing that we were finding a new flavor of addiction to lose ourselves in. And a lot of that was now looking like digital escapism.
I'll tell you who the unsung heroes of COVID are. Of course, the frontline workers, but also those business owners who hung in there and continued to pay their employees. If you stayed open and paid your people, you could be eligible for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. $26,000 per employee. It's not a loan. These are government funds that you do not have to pay back. All types of businesses, including nonprofits and churches, can be eligible. But you need to apply now because Congress may pull these funds. COVIDtaxrelief.org has helped tens of thousands of businesses just like yours and has secured over $500 million. Unlike others, they charge nothing, zero upfront. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let COVIDtaxrelief.org help you get up to $26,000 per employee. Visit COVIDtaxrelief.org, COVIDtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. I've never seen anything like it, Rich. I've never seen anything quite so biased at the presidential debate level.
Well, it continues a theme of this race, right? They've been completely in the tank for Kamala Harris, and the moderators on the debate stage were completely in the tank for Kamala Harris. And you knew where the night was going when we got the first fact check when Trump was talking about abortion and was talking about, he misspoke in this instance. He got it right later when he said the West Virginia governor, the former Virginia governor had talked about you can have abortions after birth, right? And he didn't say any state has abortions after birth. He just said the governor had said this, which is a correct statement. And then he's fact checked by saying, "Oh, Mr. Trump, there's no state in America that has abortion after 9 months." Actually, there are a few instances in Minnesota. He was correct about that as well. But this is the point. The fact check was incorrect, right? And this is why debate moderators shouldn't fact check. The CNN moderators did not fact check because what you think the fact is in that moment may be subjective, you may be wrong, and you're tilting the playing field. And certainly to fact check one candidate and never fact check the other. She did the Charlottesville lie, the both sides are fine people lie, no fact check. She did the bloodbath lie. He clearly didn't mean that the country is going to be there are going to be riots in the street if he's not elected. It was an economic statement, no fact check. So the moderators were a disgrace. It's one of the reasons Trump seemed on defensive a lot of the night. One was he took a lot of bait from Kamala Harris that he didn't need to. The other was the horrendous moderation.
Agree. He took bait he shouldn't have taken. He was defending himself on the pandemic. He was on his heels instead of going on offense and pivoting off of the bad point for him onto something that was more offensive. That was a tactical error by him. But I do want to just spend a minute on this fact check you just mentioned. Here it is. Here's the moment we're referring to where Lindsey Davis helpfully fact checked Trump on this abortion claim.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, that's not true. And maybe she can use the word kill. It's not like somebody's sticking a knife in the dead baby, in the live baby as it's dying, Emily. But you and I both know that in places like Minnesota and elsewhere, if you are trying to abort a baby in the 9th month or otherwise, and it's born instead of dying in the mother's womb, they will let that baby sit on the table and die. And Trump's claim, though Rich is right, he said at first West Virginia, later he corrected himself to Virginia. Their former governor, Ralph Northam, said this on camera, admitted to this. Here is the soundbite.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So
I'll give you one other. Roger Severino, he's with the Heritage Foundation, tweeting out the following. Harris and, as it turns out, Lindsey Davis is dead wrong. Some babies do survive abortions and can be saved, but are denied life-saving treatment, including under Tim Walz's watch. Harris even voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act that would have defended the lives of these babies, their right to live once born. Unconscionable. Trump didn't say any of that, okay? He tried. But the nerve of this moderator to inject herself into it without any of this.
Here's
you,
what
Emily.
here's what I find especially infuriating about that. She editorialized with all of the sanctimony in the world to say that word, to focus in on that word, quote, execute. I don't know if she knows any of the context that you just provided, which is all completely accurate and known to people who follow the news closely, unless you're in a total bubble and aren't doing your job, which is obviously the case here. But she chose to editorialize and say, it's not true, you can't execute, you can't kill babies. I mean, actually, it depends on whether or not you consider having a baby who could be cared for, born alive, and then left without care. If you don't consider that an execution, okay. But she is injecting here to quibble editorially, and she doesn't have a leg to stand on this particular issue. There are obvious moments where Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked just as any candidate could. I don't object to them fact-checking Donald Trump. I object to them fact-checking, as Rich said, period. We didn't, after that CNN debate about Biden, talk about the moderators for a lot of reasons, namely because of Biden, but we also really saw them sink into the background of that debate. It was the opposite in this case. They were constantly injecting themselves, constant fact checks. Didn't get a fact check on IVF, Project 2025, as Abigail Schreier pointed out. Nothing on Charlottesville, even when Snopes had fact-checked what Joe Biden was saying about Charlottesville that Kamala Harris repeated. Nothing on abortion, nothing on that bloodbath comment. They just let it all go and just went straight for Trump. It was all him, none her, nothing, not one fact check on Kamala Harris.
But Emily, what you point out gets to the insanity of it. If she was going to be strictly accurate in her fact check, she would have said, well, it's not technically an execution because you're not affirmatively killing the child. Instead, after the child's born, you're just giving the child comfort care and not the medical care that might be necessary to save him or her. That's an opinion, right? That's a debate answer. But instead they do it under the guise of a fact check, which gives it this authority it doesn't deserve that they're using that by the grace of them sitting there as moderators. It's a total abuse of their role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same thing on Trump's attempt to claim that when he said on a podcast that he lost the 2020 election by a whisker, I said this on my show today, you guys. I said, if I were asking the questions tonight, I would ask him about that. And about the fact that he said on a podcast last week he lost by a whisker. And you should bring that up. And that's fine to bring that up, which they did. And I was actually surprised by Trump's answer. I was being sarcastic. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that he was being sarcastic in that answer either. I didn't detect the sarcasm myself. That's not appropriate as a fact check. David Muir, here's the moment.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
That.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
All right, we'll recut that with the actual response from David Muir, which was, I didn't detect any sarcasm. That's opinion. That's opinion, Emily. And it is not up to the debate moderator to be saying, I don't quite believe you. That's what he's saying. I didn't believe your answer. Who gives a flying fig what David Muir thinks of Trump's answer?
And that's why these moderators getting into the business of live fact-checking debates is a farce. And in this case, it was so obviously a farce because not once did they attempt to do the same thing to Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because in the first half of the debate, Kamala Harris came out, she seemed maybe a little nervous. Donald Trump seemed like, he thought that she would be easier to debate than she actually was. And, he took the bait a couple of times from her. She baited him into talking about his rallies, when he probably shouldn't have been litigating the size of his rallies. But then as the media fact checks started piling up, and as it became clearer and clearer that the editorial line from ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megyn, they said that there was an editorial firewall in this case, which was obviously not true. That bled all the way down into this debate, and that became increasingly obvious. And that's where Donald Trump picked up steam. He was, he I thought came across as a little overly defensive and angry in the first half of the debate. But as the media performance started to get more and more egregious, he actually really, really did start picking up steam. So even by their own objectives, they're too dumb. They're too dumb to actually fulfill their own their own objectives, which we all know is that they want to destroy Donald Trump, because this ends up helping him when it may not have been a good debate for him, period. Now the big conversation coming out of the Trump camp is going to be an entirely reasonable one about what a joke the media was. So the big loser here, and I mean bigger than Donald Trump in this case, is ABC News. Because now, I think all of the networks, to your point, Megyn, might be losing access to debates from Republicans going forward. They should.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. He is so dishonest, Newt. I mean, this guy, he's just brushing by the actual history between those two and what they've said publicly because he realizes people are living their lives and not parsing through their previous statements today.
Well, look, I think part of what makes this all so difficult is that the scale of both Biden corruption and Department of Justice corruption is so enormous that we keep trying to take it back to the norm. We keep trying to say, gee, it can't really be this sick, but it is. And you just have to start with that assumption. These are dishonest people who believe that the rest of us are so stupid that if they just play as though they're being honest, that we'll go along with it, or we'll be powerless because they have the presidency, the Justice Department, the FBI. They can rig the game. And this is just the most recent example, although it is done so stupidly that you have to wonder what's going on. First of all, technically, Weiss can't be a special counsel because the special counsel in law has to be somebody coming from outside of the Justice Department. Second, to take a guy who has almost been, a comedy act. I mean, you mentioned earlier, he allowed the time to expire when they could try the biggest of the tax problems. If that was done in the private sector, he would have been sued for malpractice. I mean, it's one of the most basic, obvious things. This is a guy whose plea deal was so bad that it collapsed in court in public. And this is a guy who's managed to avoid prosecuting Hunter Biden, despite the fact that the FBI has had the laptop since 2019, and that, in fact, people know there are a whole range of good reasons for prosecuting him. And that's the guy that Merrick Garland picks to become the special counsel. The whole thing is such an act of utter contempt for all the rest of us that it's I think, kind of astonishing.
So why does he do it now? Is it to retain control? Is it to shut down Weiss testifying in front of the House? Like, what do you think led Merrick Garland to do this on Friday?
Well, I'm not totally sure. I think part of it is that Weiss is beginning to realize that he's going to have to actually try Hunter Biden, that they're not going to get to a plea deal, not one that Biden will accept, and not one that he can offer. So from that standpoint, he's in a different position. I also think that they're going to try to use this to shield Weiss from testifying, but that doesn't necessarily work. If this becomes, and this is where I think Speaker Kevin McCarthy is exactly right, if this becomes a matter of impeachment inquiry, they can bring him in, even though he's currently on the case, and they can compel him to testify. He can plead the fifth, but that's pretty weird to have a Justice Department lawyer pleading the fifth. But I think that as the Republicans dig deeper and become more determined, and as the country begins to realize how sick the whole thing is, it's going to make it more difficult for Weiss to avoid coming in, and frankly, for Merrick Garland to avoid coming in. Remember, in Watergate, the only cabinet officer ever to go to jail was the Attorney General, John Mitchell, and he went to jail for obstruction of justice. I suspect if we get access, which we will eventually, to all the various emails between Merrick Garland and Weiss in the White House, we're going to find out that Merrick Garland is blatantly seeking to obstruct justice and is vulnerable following the John Mitchell and becoming the second U.S. Attorney General to end up in jail for obstruction.
I mean, we've heard some rattlings about that from Ted Cruz and others about whether Merrick Garland lied under oath about the authority that had been granted to David Weiss, and that this is just this is what really is a falling on the sword. It's sort of an admission, if you read it, that the critics have been right all along. He did not empower David Weiss. Both of them have been misleading us about it. And just as David Weiss was going to have to go and do the full-throated under oath testimony about whether he went to the U.S. attorneys, which we know he did, in California and D.C., and asked them to prosecute charges only to get stiff-armed and then not be able to bring those charges, and then the statute of limitations expired. Right as he was going to have to do all that, he gets this new title, which the two of them have been telling us all along is unnecessary. He's got more power than a special counsel. And people like Jonathan Turley, smart lawyers who I respect, say that he actually does not have to go in front of Congress now. And you're pointing out, even if he does go, he's got escape clauses that, may or may not prove fruitful for him. But all of this, it tells me what? It tells me that he's in Merrick Garland's pocket. The whistleblower said that. The whistleblower said David Weiss had no real interest in investigating Hunter Biden, thwarted the investigation every turn, told Hunter Biden's lawyers when they were about to raid his storage closet, go interview him and other witnesses, kept giving him the heads up so that they couldn't get any real evidence, let the statute of limitations expire, misled us in his testimony that he gave to Congress, and we could go down the list. And then he tried to strike this sweetheart deal in this Delaware federal court, which the judge caught him. She caught him at. And that's when the plea deal fell apart. And now what we get, Mr. Speaker, is an announcement that, yes, the parties are in an impasse on a negotiation to stave off the remaining charges against Hunter, tax and BS charges. I mean, the ones that they seem to be pursuing, not the real meat, most of which have expired. But they're going to pull the case away from that hero Delaware federal court judge, and they want to refile now in D.C. or California, where, again, they already tried, according to the whistleblowers, and were rebuffed by the sitting U.S. attorneys there, and David Weiss did nothing about it. He did nothing about it. So, the main goal here is let's get the hell away from the Delaware federal district court judge who was on to us.
Well, I think that they are frankly just trying to run the clock out. They would like to never get to trial before the next election. And simply wait everything out. And if you'll notice, part of what this does is for those people who are not deeply committed left-wing Democrats, it just makes really clear the double standard of the persecution of Donald Trump when the protection of the Bidens. And frankly, the protection of Hillary Clinton. The double standard is now so blatantly obvious that historians will someday write about it, I think, with a sense of awe that they really thought the American people were so stupid that they could have this kind of open hypocrisy and not pay for it. And I think, in fact, what you're seeing is more and more people, and Jonathan Turley is certainly an example, Andy McCarthy is another example, very senior lawyers, Alan Dershowitz, who are saying flatly, this stuff is all rigged, it's all phony, much of it is beyond the law and should be illegal. And that you're dealing with people in charge of the law who are, in fact, outside the law.
Yeah, who are themselves behaving corruptly. Not for nothing, but on the point I just made about how the whistleblower said David Weiss and his team were thwarting them, these tax investigators, really smart guys, at every turn on their investigation of Hunter. We will not be looking into Joe Biden, they were told. We will not be discussing, quote, the big guy. You will not be asking questions about any of the Biden grandchildren, including the adult grandchildren who had bank accounts they believe were receiving improper payments and whose finances were involved in this whole scheme. And trying to protect Hunter, as I said, with respect to the search of his storage closet, with respect to the witness interviews that the FBI was going to do. And just this morning, House Oversight released a transcript of an FBI supervisory agent who backed up those two IRS whistleblowers. The IRS whistleblower, they were on our show. The FBI supervisory agent, so, a different investigator, backed them up entirely. And one of the highlights from this agent reads as follows. The agent said, quote, "I was informed that FBI headquarters had contacted Secret Service headquarters and had made a notification that we sought to interview Hunter before they went there. They did not wish for him to have a heads up. They did not wish for the Secret Service to know. And sure enough, them notifying the Secret Service alerted Hunter and shut down the interview. They did not get their interview." And then the question was put to this FBI agent, "In your career of 20 years, have you ever been told that you had to wait outside of a target's home until they contacted you?" Agent, "Not that I recall." Look at the mirror. Do you see those dark spots? You don't have to live like this, but they're not going to go away on their own. Introducing the Dark Spot Corrector from Genucel, perfect for summer. The Dark Spot Corrector, with not one but 3 cutting-edge ingredients, goes to work fast to target sunspots, dark spots, liver spots, and even old discoloration, both on your face and hands. Enjoy your summer sun, beach, and barbecues without those embarrassing, pesky spots. With Genucel, you will see the results or you will get your money back. No questions asked. Go to Genucel.com right now. Get your dark spot corrector with the new Genucel Most Popular Package and say goodbye to those pesky spots tomorrow. And if you're not blown away with the results, get 100% of your money back. No questions asked. Visit Genucel.com/MK60 right now for these amazing summer essentials and save over 70% off Genucel's Most Popular Package. Don't wait. Order Genucel's Most Popular Package right now. Free shipping, free returns, and the best luxury skincare you've ever used. All at 70% off at Genucel.com/MK60. GENUCEL.com/MK60. All orders include a mystery luxury gift while supplies last. Genucel.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.